Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kings and queens, everybody, everybody. Yeah. Well, anyway, whatever. We got a great show coming up for you tonight. As soon as my guest gets here. Oh man, it's been kind of a bear to book. To be honest with you, my original lineup, half of them bowed out today, for various reasons, and so I had to find some last minute replacements. But it still should be an interesting discussion, and there's a lot to talk about. It'll be fun. And something new that I don't have a solid date yet for, but we're shooting for Friday. Okay, we're shooting for Friday. So recently, the White House put up a January 6th page. And here, you know what? I'll just take a moment and show you guys this. Okay, show you guys this nonsense. Give me a second. Hold on. Let me change my little settings. Okay. Okay, yeah. You guys see this January 6th nonsense from the White House? Okay. You see this shit? Here, let me adjust it so you can see this shit, actually. Okay. So look at this. This is the official White House website, okay? This is what they're saying. That it was the Democrats who staged the real insurrection by certifying a fraud-ridden election, ignoring widespread irregularities, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, full of lies. This whole website is full of lies. It's crazy. Anyway, we're going to have an emergency show on this. Dev and Destiny versus all comers. Every single conservative who wants to fight in existence, okay? Right? Anyone I can find. Were the Democrats the real insurrectionists? We're going to have that hopefully Friday. I don't have a specific date, but it's in there. It's in the works. We're putting it together. So if you out there happen to think that the Democrats were the real January 6ers, okay, and you would like to fight Destiny on this subject, or Dev on this subject, or both, please let me know. I have a panel for you, okay? It will be fun. You will get all the chance in the world to say your piece. And yeah, it should be a good show. And I hope you guys tune in. I hope I can get it booked. I think I can, though. I think I can. I think I can. But no, today we're not talking about that. Other than that, it's insane, right? This is a literally 1984 shit. And I know that's an overused metaphor, right? An overused comparison, but this is literally rewriting history in real time by the government in order to prop up insurrectionists and erase their crimes from history and to paint them as the good guys. It's insane. And we're going to talk about it. But today, we have some other things to talk about. Okay. We got to talk about some Somali fraud. We're going to talk about Tim Walz. We're going to talk about Nick Shirley. Tim Walz recently dropped his re-election bid. Okay. He dropped out of the race. He's not resigning, but he dropped out of his re-election bid for governor. Okay. Was it because of the fraud? We're going to talk about it today. Should be a good discussion to have. Anyway, we're waiting on my guests. Hopefully they get here soon. And I can pull them on. And we can have this debate. Zero Fucks, nice to see you. Ackladup, also nice to see you. Are we the bannies? Maybe. Imosaurus, 1996, says the Western Hemisphere belongs to the U.S. Are you a interventionist then? Are you a globo homo kind of guy? Who does the Eastern Hemisphere belong to? In your opinion? Just curious. Where are my guests? Where is everyone? Let me send a DM out. Give me a second. They have 10 seconds. Maybe they'll get here. It might just be me, gang. It just might be me today. Oh man. They are late, and I am bereft of guests. I had a whole panel. No one is showing up today? That's a record. I've never had no one show. I've had people no-show me before, but never the whole goddamn panel. That's great. Okay, good. They're here. At least 2 of them. So. Hello, you're both live, by the way. Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. What about you, Mr. Rube?
Of course.
Okay, well, make sure get your cameras on if you got cameras, gang. How you doing, Shenandoah?
I'm doing okay. I'm just figuring out my technology right now.
Yeah, you're all live, by the way. Everyone's live. Everyone can hear you and see you and all the good things. So make sure you behave appropriately. Finally, we got Lactoid here. Okay. Last in line Lactoid. Late to the ball Lactoid, okay? But we're glad you're here, buddy. Thank you for being here. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, we can't hear you, Lactoid. Sorry. I think your
All right.
mic's messed up again.
Yeah, I've got a new mic this time, so the last Saturday's problem should not reappear. And if they do, well, then I'll have to. But then I still got my backup actually, so we'll still be good.
We have backup.
Is it the broken backup?
No, it's my third
Okay.
non-broken backup. Okay.
Yes or no? Is it your?
Uh-oh.
Well, we got a show now. We got people here. I'm excited, right? There's this one was a difficult one. 2 of the people backed out. So audience, dear viewers, be kind to Shenandoah and to InPursuit because they've had less time to prepare. They graciously agreed to fill in last minute for me, and I appreciate them. So just if they're not got all the sources in a row right away, just, give them a little grace. That's all I'm saying. Today, we're going to be talking about the recent Nick Shirley video where he allegedly exposed daycare fraud in Minnesota. Tim Walz recently dropped his re-election bid, and some claim, in part at least, due to the fraud scandal rocking his state. Some estimates are as high as $8 to $9 billion in Somalian fraud. The questions we have for today is this. Did Nick Shirley is there fraud in Minnesota? To what extent? Are the Democrats running cover for that fraud? And to what extent? And is the Nick Shirley video something that we should be encouraging? Is it citizen journalism? Did it expose fraud? Or did it simply muddy the waters with lies and half-truths and innuendo? We got a lot to talk about today. We got a lot to discuss. We got some great people here to discuss it with. We're going to give the mic first to Mr. Gelatinous Rube, Mr. Ass of Creativity, and he's going to start us out and open us up. The mic's yours. Introduce yourself, introduce your thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm Master Creativity or Gelatinous Rube. I usually talk about gaming content, but I've been dipping into politics just a little bit because it's so much fun. So, Somalians in Minnesota have formed, I'm going to say, a hostile foreign colony based on their block voting and pattern of bilking different reimbursement funds, such as Feeding Our Future, childcare assistance programs with the aid of Tim Walz and his cabinet. There have been convictions already confirming at least hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fraud, and the estimates, like Wick mentioned, go much higher based on those still existing loopholes. The loopholes within these laws, these provisionary funds, basically make sure that watchdogs in power never need to do anything, that they never need to address fraud. They Some of them are handpicked by Tim Walz, and they just do nothing. The laws provisioning them are intentionally designed with loopholes, both to offer this colony of pirates in our country and their fifth column cover. The ironclad defensive, look, I just didn't know. I wasn't sure. But there's no reason to lose hope. We can and we are fighting back. Today's opener was supposed to be black-pilled, but as was recently announced, the retard industrial complex's strongest soldier has dropped out. Tim Walz is not running for re-election anymore. So I think that, to wrap everything up, I think that there's hope to be had. I think that these people are going to be shut down. I welcome DHS and ICE going into Minneapolis. I predict our opponents tonight will complain about fraud all over the country, focus on Donald Trump, bring up random metrics they themselves don't know or don't care about. I'm not here to debate any of this. This is clear cut. Condemn it, crush it, grind these people into dust, squish them with hydraulic presses, and denaturalize the poor. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Next up is Lactoid. Lactoid, give us what you got.
Hey, Wick, I do like to be gracious, and I will show grace towards people who only had a few hours to prepare. So I'm not gonna go super hard, but I do think it's important to point out that one of the prior debaters that was scheduled dropped out after reading some evidence that I presented in the group chat to everybody, because I think at this point it is just undeniable that this is a legitimate scandal to some extent. Now, the only question is how much are we adequately stating it, or are we overstating it? The report from the Legislative Oversight Department, I forget the exact name of it, Legislative Audit Department, I believe, did put out a report in 2004 in which they went over the Minnesota Department of Education's policies regarding the aid grants that were given to organizations like Feeding Our Future, along with a whole bunch of different other daycares, many of which, not all, but many of which have been shut down due to allegations of fraud and convictions of fraud in many cases. And the report indicates a lot of fault. It indicates that pretty consistently the Department of Education failed to do their job. They were negligent. They did not review. Complaints adequately. They didn't follow up on complaints adequately. And the report very specifically states that one of the stated reasons why was because they were concerned about allegations of racism. Allegations of racism that came from Democrat politicians in Minnesota, for example. One example would be Jamal Osman. Another example would be Omar Fattah. That would publicly accuse the Department of Education, Minnesota Department of Education, and other investigatory bodies of targeting immigrants, of racism, in order to try to discourage. And a lot of their donors were from these organizations, and they would allege these things in order to discourage investigation. So, given that, I think that my point, I got three main points. The first point is, the allegations of racism have gotten way too fucking crazy to the point now where they're being used to defend actual fraud, and state officials are listening and responding to that. I think that the Walz administration was negligent in the fact that they put people in charge that didn't do their jobs, that were overtly negligent in overseeing the dispersal of aid and overseeing fraud, hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud, potentially billions, as Wick pointed out. And then I think there's also a broader conversation to be had as to, I guess, the Somali immigrant generally compared to other immigrant groups, where consistently Somalians You have higher welfare usage rates than other immigrant groups. They have higher crime rates than other immigrant groups. They seem to have a particularly difficult time assimilating into Western society. So I think that is it's enough, I think, to be cautious about where are the people that we're bringing in from the world. Where are they located? What are the values there? What kind of culture do they have? Because people are culture bearers to some extent. But regardless, I think Tim Walz is stepping down for the obvious, or not running again, for the obvious reason that there is no good answer to this, right? It's either purposeful, which I haven't seen strong evidence for, or it's negligent, which I think is indisputable.
Okay, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Shenandoah, mic's to you.
Not a problem. I got a pretty damn simple opening statement. I'm Chairman Shenandoah, and I'm not going to deny that there's any fraud going on here. I think the evidence at this point is pretty strong that there is actual fraud going on in Somalia, and that this is to some extent being perpetrated by individuals in the Somali community there. My main issue is I think the Trump administration is radically overinflating how much fraud there is. There have been some numbers thrown around by the DHS of like $9 billion, and I'm really disinclined to believe numbers that large. And I'm also very much disinclined to this idea of collective punishment, which some of my fellow panelists right now are, putting forward in their opening statements. I think we should prosecute the individuals who are actual criminals who are actually doing this fraud, and we should not be generalizing this to the Somali community as a whole. I don't believe that there is anything particularly intrinsic about Somalians that make them impossible to integrate into Western society, and I believe that they could very much become Americans one day in the same way that Italians and Irish people once did. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you for being here. Sorry, gang, I'm gonna DM a couple of you, just to check something because I'm being reported here that someone else wants on this, but I want to ask permission first. I don't want to make you guys like in public say yes or no, right? But in pursuit, give us what you got.
Yeah, so much like Kamala Harris, I'm brought in the last second. And unlike her, we're going to win this debate because it's very clear that the main points that happen with this scandal that's happening, it's very obvious with what Ash said and what Lactoid said. They want to be able to use these kind of scandals to completely be racist, completely deport a group of people they don't believe that can be Americans. And just like what Lactoid said in the report, there was concerns about racism. And what did Ash do? He said that these pirates need to, there's a hostile colony of pirates in Minnesota that need to be deported. What did Lactoid say? He's, again, using a justification by saying that the Somalians can't integrate into American society. Therefore, we should also kick them out. It's a very simple, this is much like the Haitians eating cats and dogs back during the election debate. It does not matter about truth. As long as right-wingers are able to use a story to be racist, to absolutely justify their based desire of fear, they will use it. And that's why this Nick Shirley video, which is a part of this debate, discrediting it completely, is also on the table. And there's been a lot of evidence of that. But, you know, I was given 2 hours warning. Not even. I was walking my dog. So, you know, that's just off the top of the dome. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Gang, I'm sorry to say to you, dear viewers, I don't think we're going to be able to bring in anyone last minute on this. We've had a veto, okay? And I can't do that to my panelists, so I'm sorry. I will say I did ask Destiny originally if he wanted on this before I asked anyone else, and he told me he'd rather kill himself than do this topic. So I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, it's just what it is, and we can't do that. But we are going to have Destiny on soon. I promise you, we're going to talk about the January 6th stuff. We're setting that up as we speak. But today, it's just going to be what we got. I'm sorry. Can't do that to my panelists. I apologize. But regardless, let's get on this. Okay, so yeah, let's the floor is open. we can get in on it. And what do
Hey,
you guys
wait.
got? Go ahead.
Before we start, could I just note your Twitch title is your old video. It's Asmon Gold.
Let me change
Just
that.
want to let
Thank
you
you
know.
for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Good, now go, Bruce.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have to mention his name 37 times in the first 10 minutes, and they're going to go viral.
Okay, well, again, I changed the title. Let's get. I'm sorry, this is a little weird. Okay, well, let's just start. Are the Democrats
ahead.
overlooking fraud in Minnesota? Yes or no? What do we think?
Well, can I start? Can I just start with the report that I posted in the Discord? Obviously, I don't expect any of you to have read the full thing in this period of time, right? I totally understand. But are you guys are you aware of it, or?
Could you give me a little bit more context on what's in the report, because I have not read it right now. I really haven't.
Sure.
I'm one of the people who got
No.
subbed in like 2 hours.
Absolutely.
I'm well aware. That's
Yeah.
totally fine. So it's from June 2024. It's the Minnesota Department of Education review. It reviews the Minnesota Department of Education. It's the Office of the Legislative Auditor. So the Office of the Legislative Auditor is a nonpartisan department within Minnesota that is tasked with reviewing the government, right? They're tasked with going to the government, making sure shit's good, and then, essentially putting out reports to say, is the government doing its job in XYZ circumstance? They did a report on the Minnesota Department of Education and determined that there was multiple instances of failure, of just a complete failure to properly oversee these funds. Whether it be not following up on reports timely, not following reports at all, there was a ton of instances of that. And when you look at, there are some justifications given that have some basis, I suppose. But if you look at some of the other justifications given, they are very quite literally. I can point to the direct page. Give me 1 second.
I mean, so this is feeding our future, right? This is the whole point about feeding our future, which then we did have some people be prosecuted for this, correct?
Feeding our
Including the
future
first-
feeding our future is like the biggest example that I've been able to find in terms of just being particularly egregious. There are some other examples, but the
Which one do you
report
want to
itself.
talk about?
Well, so the report itself isn't just referring to feeding our future. It's referring to the overall Minnesota Department of Education's practices during this time period. I will specifically focus on feeding on our future for this statement right here. Quote, according to MDE officials, the threat of legal consequences and negative media attention affected MDE's decision about the regulatory actions it did and did not take against feeding our future. Now, what that and earlier up, this is on page 11 of the PDF. Earlier up, it states MDE and Feeding Our Future were engaged in the lawsuit. Court filings included accusations by Feeding Our Future that MDE was discriminating against it because it served minority communities. Where did these allegations of discrimination come from? Democrat politicians, Omar Fattah, City Council of Minneapolis, Jamal Osman. Jamal Osman directly called the state racist for looking into this. Omar Fattah said that they were targeting immigrant groups when they were looking into this fraud, and that they were putting pressure on the state to try to scale back the investigations into the fraud. So, yeah, I think that the fact that you have the government not doing its job because they are afraid of negative outcry is already kind of a problem. But then when you look at who's doing the negative outcry, it's not like just random fucking people on Facebook. It's people who hold positions of power within the state of Minnesota. And what kind of outcry are they putting forward? Oh, that's racist. Oh, that's bigoted against immigrants, right? It's exactly what we should be arguing against people and organizations being able to do.
Didn't you just say in your opening statement, that Somalis, can't integrate into American society?
That is no. So that's a third point separate from this. But I do think that there is a broader conversation as to Because let's be real, one of the reasons I think why people are focused on this in large extent is that it has to do with the Somalian community, right? At a time in which immigration is like a major debate. But there is truth to the
Can't you
fact
see
that
why there is some concern about perhaps, I don't know, people showing up at these places saying, hey, where are the kids at? You know, you have random YouTubers just showing up and saying, hey, open your doors. Let me have little Aaron or Joey. You know, can we also understand? You can see that though, right? Lactoid, like you can understand that there should be some concern about a racist tide going against the Somali community. I mean, Ash of creativity. At least Ash is like straight up with it, and he just wants to deport them all or kill them all. I don't know which he prefers, but you know, clearly there is racism.
Just to be clear,
there.
I said kill fraudsters, right? And that applies to white people as well, or whatever. But we're not playing this game anymore of like you can't prosecute criminals because of the color of their skin. We're just not doing it anymore.
Who is advocating for that? So I think Lactoid.
I think you are.
That.
I think historically people have.
We're advocating for that. I
do think that you're offering cover to these and using the veiled accusation of racism. Oh, maybe they'll back down. Maybe they'll stop talking about it if I just say that they're racist. But that's not working anymore.
That's not necessarily.
If you didn't want people showing up to their houses or showing up to their. Sorry,
we have an issue with this idea that because there was simply fraud in these communities and possibly negligence which enabled this fraud, which I don't think either of us are necessarily disagreeing with, justifies this like collective punishment of Somali Americans in Minnesota. That's the problem we're having with this statement right now. Like, can we say that there's fraud? Sure. Can we say that like there have been some overreactions by Democrats in Minnesota that are a little bit overprotective, even if they might come from well-meaning places? Sure, why not, right? Like, yeah, the point that excuse me, InPursuit, that's your name, right?
Yeah.
That he's making is like a legitimate
point.
Dorian.
Just call me Dorian. It's fine.
Dorian? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Like he's making a legitimate point that yeah, of course, like when people see this, they're going to there's going to be a large number of people who are going to react in a legitimately racist way and are going to say that like, hey, every single of the 80,000 Somali Americans living in Minnesota should all be should all be unanimously deported for the actions of like 80 people.
I mean, that's what Ash is saying, right?
Concern. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's like
Ash,
a legitimate concern.
Not for the acts of 80 people. There were 80 people who were convicted. But when we're talking about daycare fraud, when we're talking about vendors who get prosecuted later on,
they're American citizens, right?
These companies, they're paperwork Americans. Some of them are just they're just
paperwork
status.
Americans. Unlike real Americans. Is that your point that they should be denaturalized and deported because they committed fraud?
I think that's a great reason to deport somebody. Like, okay, there's somebody got a presidential pardon for fraud. Yeah, okay, so what I predicted earlier was absolutely correct.
Should he be deported?
Sure, if you convict him, deport him.
Okay.
I was going to bring up the guy that he pardoned recently. I was going to say, like, put that guy on an island somewhere. I think that the deportation should be probably like a default punishment for a lot of crimes at this point. It's a lot harder to let somebody out of prison earlier to go terrorize the local community if they're on the other side of the planet. Or if they're getting, beaten in an Ecuadorian jail.
Guy just wants
or El Salvador in Secot or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting idea. I suppose, like, I don't know. I suppose
retarded shouldn't do it. It's retarded.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. Where it's like
not interesting in the slightest.
Because it's like this idea of creating penal colonies in the 21st century, or like creating a new Australia or whatever. I don't even know exactly how to handle that. Because I suppose like my immediate rebuttal to that would just be I would prefer people be in American prisons where they have like oversight, and if they're like if they have been erroneously found guilty, we can actually like release them from prisons. Like, what the fuck happens if like somebody gets swept up in this investigation and they get sent to Somalia and they get shot by some Al-Shabaab terrorist and it turns out that they were innocent the entire time? Like,
yeah,
I'd rather have people in like conditions where we can monitor them and actually like subject them to basic human decency.
Here's the problem. Your oversight is clearly either designed or is simply being used to let people get away with fraud. I see some questions in there. Pardon, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just confused. Like, all I'm really saying is like we should have people in prison rather than like going back to the 18th century and
You're talking about due
deporting people.
process.
No. So what
Yeah,
I'm
like,
And
that's
referring
all I'm
Ash
to,
saying.
doesn't believe in due
yeah,
process.
you can absolutely deport people with due process. The punishment for a crime doesn't imply due process violations.
We won't go into the Seacock thing, but you do believe in the Seacock, ideas, which did not use due process, right? Ash,
Okay,
I just want to double check.
I'm not talking about due process. I'm not talking about due process violations. I'm not saying get rid of due process. I'm saying adjust the punishment for fraud, get rid of these people.
Now, a quick
Yeah,
question: would that be across the board? Like, would you want exile to be punishment for fraud for, say, someone who's born here?
Yeah, that's all.
Yes.
And where would you even exile them to?
I have no
Because
idea.
there's plenty of third world countries around. Dude, send them to fucking Epstein Island. I don't care.
And if
You're not a
innocent, and they
serious
get, like,
person. You're not a serious.
Yeah.
These aren't serious
Yeah,
proposals.
no, you could
This is
say
not-
that I'm
this is
not
just for
serious,
memes.
but
I mean, I can say
deportation
that
has
because it's
been
true,
historically
Ash. It's
used
clear.
as
You're
a
calling
punishment.
you're calling people paperwork Americans. That is one of the most retarded statements I've ever heard of in my life. Are you fucking kidding me? But you also
On what
don't
basis?
believe in the same America as me, and that's clear.
Okay.
So it's hard to have a
Do the
real
people who
conversation.
formed a voting bloc and defrauded funds meant for poor people who, just needed a leg up, do those people believe in the same America as you?
What do you mean believe in the same America as me? Because that doesn't matter. Because
Whatever
as far as I understand, as to be an American, it just means about being in this place, having the same liberal. To me, it would be that I want to deport you because you don't believe in liberalism. You don't believe in the liberal ideologies that gave you the rights and freedoms that you.
I think I do,
pertain
and
to love.
better than
No,
you.
instead you want to exile people to some third world country to Epstein's Island. No, I would deport you.
Sure.
I would deport people that don't believe in liberalism. Small L, by the way, to understand that. Way before I would an immigrant, okay? Just because they're trying to come here as refugees, leaving a failed state, and then saying, yes, they committed fucking fraud. Absolutely, but they don't deserve to be denaturalized. I can't believe this is a real talking point when the whole point that Lactoid was trying to make.
In the
whole
halls
point
of
that
the
Lactoid trying to
Minnesota
make.
Department of Education.
Let InPursuit finish, and then you can respond. I promise.
The whole point Lactoid was trying to make was that the Democrats, didn't go after these people because it was racism. And then what happens? You're being fucking racist as shit, saying we should deport them all. So I think those Democrats had some justification. And the reason why this is so important. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
it's fine. I guess this is almost a side tangent, and I want to get back to the actual discussion prompt, if you will, right? Which is, what is it? I'll just ask. Did everyone here see Nick Shirley's video, or at least parts of it, clips, things
Parts
like
of
that?
it.
Yeah, I saw parts.
Yeah.
Saw somebody else's review of it.
You saw a review of the video.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I just clicked through like 10 minutes, very, very, very quickly.
In your in Lactoid and Ash, in your opinions, what is the strongest evidence of fraud that Nick Shirley brought forth in his video?
So, just to be clear, I'm not with the main thrust of my argument is not resting upon Nick Shirley's argument or Nick Shirley's video. If it was,
for the sake of discussion.
Sure. If it was, I would have watched the whole thing. I'm mostly resting it on, again, the actual legislative auditors investigation. I think this is honestly more of a Minnesota scandal and Tim Walz scandal than it is like a Somali scandal necessarily. But if we're just talking about the video, one of the things that I did find when I was looking into this was Shirley wasn't the only one that did this shit where he would go up to these daycares and see if anybody was there. There was also local news stations, and before Nick Shirley put out his video that was blew up on Twitter, there was some local news stations where they would send reporters to do the same thing, and they would go to these areas and they would knock on the door and visit the same place multiple times, 3-4 times, and people just weren't there. There wasn't staff there to answer. There wasn't children there to answer. It wasn't uncommon. It wasn't infrequent that was the case. So I think the excuse of the Luring Center was it was just closed at the time that Nick Shirley showed up. That's all it was. That could be true. I mean, there's always plausible deniability. You can't ever really hammer that down, I suppose. But there's like a lot of weird circumstances around it. He shows up. There's nobody there. Then later, there are people there. Okay, and then this goes public that apparently it's been shut down, and then it goes public that it's not shut down. And then a different daycare, I think I have it written down, the Minnesota Child Care Center. That was also, reporters would go to that and couldn't. I mean, they went to that place like 3 or 4 times, and there was like nobody there. And then all these different daycares, at least specifically the 2 I'm referring to, but generally speaking, the local news story covered a whole bunch of them. There were a lot of violations. The Luring Center specifically was put on probation for a couple of years because of a lot of violations regarding child safety. So, yeah, is that the same thing as like just a complete? It could just be complete incompetence, sure. But I just think there's enough suspicion there where we have documented fraud of a lot of these organizations defrauding the government. We have certain organizations now where there's like red flags and there's smoke, like news reporters showing up and there being nobody there, and kind of a history of like a lot of citations or probationary measures placed on by the government. But would I feel confident saying that like the Luring Center is committing fraud right now? I would not say that right now. I just think that there is enough there for people to be concerned. I'm fine with people investigating it, just like I think it was a good thing when Feeding Our Future was investigated.
Sure. Do you think that the Trump administration freezing all funding to daycare centers and things like that into Minnesota was an appropriate response to the Nick Shirley video?
I mean, I'm opposed to that kind of federal funding.
Sure,
but,
I understand, but like,
Yeah.
if you were king of the world, you'd just get rid of it, right? Like, but that would
Yeah.
fraud being part of it wouldn't play into that. But do you think it's appropriate for the United States government, the head of the United States government, because of a YouTube video, to freeze federal funding into a state where?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I would have done it earlier. I think that when the auditor's report came out, I think that would have been the time to do it. Now Trump, to be fair, Trump wasn't president at that time, right? So he couldn't have done it. But I don't know. I'm struggling because, yeah, if the auditor's report came down when he was president, he should have done it at that time. But it didn't come down when he was president. So should he have cut it all off on day one? I don't know. I'm not even really sure how much he knew about it before this Nick Shirley video. This video could have like brought his attention to it. The administration.
Nick Shirley's been at the White House, and
well then, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
He's been to Ukraine. His whole stick is like going around and just saying, "Well, isn't that weird, huh? Well, look, there's a Porsche in Kiev. I thought there was a war going on." No, I'm not joking. It's literally, he is a propagandist. He's a liar. And what happened? And the same thing happened here in Minneapolis, where he went around going to the same places that you talked about earlier, that a news reports had done. He went there purposely when they were closed, because a lot of these Somali immigrant groups work at night. They do night graveyard shifts. Okay. And he went there during the day so he could say, "Oh, there's blackout windows." Isn't that weird? That's the whole point. And the whole point is that the right wing completely controls the media right now. The alternative media is controlled by the right wing with X. It's completely a massive gnosis right now. Why is it the fact that the only thing that we can talk about is the last 5 seconds? And that's why this Tim Walz resigning was not about this. I think he did it for another reason, because this would have blown over, number one. And number two, he did not have anything to do with this. There's not enough evidence tied to it. All we have right now isn't that weird? And it just reminds me of the exact same thing that happened with what's his name? Oh my gosh, his name just escaped me. The comedian that was also the senator from Minnesota. Al Franken. This is the exact same thing happened to Al Franken, where if
Not
they would have
Franken,
doubled
Franken, Al
what-
Franken.
Franken.
it's gonna
Sorry, he
make
was
me
there
twitch every time.
taking pictures. Back during the Iraq War, he went over to Iraq, and there was like a pretend. It was a photo where he's like pretend touching some woman's boobs, and that was a huge scandal. Instead, we have Trump who says literally, "I grab him by the pussy." You know what I mean? It's a double standard. You Republicans don't give a fuck. There is no morality to you guys at all. This is not true. The same thing happened with the Haitians. I'm sorry, Shenandoah, I'm talking too much. But this is
No,
just
it's
something that just irks me so much. We will not care about this. There will not be things like fallout from this. The only fallout was going after Tim Walz. And that's clear because now we have Benny Johnson who just tweeted saying, we're going after Newsom now. What did Trump say? He said, we're going after Newsom in California because if Minneapolis is corrupt, for sure California is corrupt. This is
Minnesota.
bullshit.
Look, I'm not gonna endorse every Benny Johnson tweet. That's for sure. I think that if you're saying that this guy is goes to the White House or like is known by the administration, I think that probably makes it more likely that that they just didn't have this really on their radar as much until this happened, and then it started gaining public traction. Right? People are going, especially elected officials, are going to respond to public outrage, and Shirley's video, I
Does it
suppose,
make it
was
true,
sort of
though?
so. Like I said, I'm not going to, especially having not seen the whole thing, I'm not going to endorse everything in Shirley's video as true. But it's him showing up to these daycare centers and knocking on the door and not finding anybody. It's not just him, right? Before this panel, I did watch like local news coverage of this going back for a while, and there was a couple like investigatory reporters who would like go to these places and knock on the door, and there would be like nobody, and they'd come back at a different time. There'd be nobody. They'd come back at like a different time. There'd be nobody. And I think with this, the suspicion that's raised is that I can't prove right now, right? Obviously, there's more investigations are going, but the suspicion is, well, what if we already have evidence of some of this fraud happening, a pretty substantial amount, and we already have evidence of people in power defending these organizations, then what if like they were able to kind of get away with some shit before as well? And what if they're only sort of changing tactics now because they realize that the eye is on them? And oh shit, yeah, bring your kids. We got to fucking change the look, etc.
Yeah.
Do we know this for a fact? No, we don't
Yeah,
know this for a
just
fact.
real quick, let me make a little money. And gang, if you want to say something or ask a question to any of these panelists, simply super chat, and I'll read what you say. So first of all, that Rift person 1766, thank you for the tier 1 membership. And Jen Wink for $5 says, "Why is Lactoid scared of Destiny?" And thank you for the $5.
He's too tall.
But with that said, back to the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lactoid, if I could ask, very simply. So I
Yeah.
think on a lot of the basic facts, we're in agreement here that there is very likely this fraud. There's been other investigations into this fraud, et cetera, et cetera. I'm even very willing to believe that the nonpartisan
Legislative
auditing
Audit
office?
Department.
Thank you, yeah, the auditing department had genuinely found that like there are Democrats who were concerned about like jumping into this investigation. I think my issue right now is that the amount of evidence we have does not necessarily go beyond negligence. I think I'm willing to accept that there is some negligence here, that there was a failure on the part of the Minnesota government to properly investigate fraud here. I'm willing to say that, but I think there is quite a leap to say that like there was some kind of organized voting bloc that was intentionally like coming into government through the Democrats and preventing the state of Minnesota from actually investigating and fighting this fraud. I think that's unlikely. I do think there is like very little evidence of that kind of conspiracy going on right now.
I mean,
unless
there's
comes out of
some
court documents.
right. I mean, there's some level of
Yeah.
conspiracy, obviously, because we already know that there was a conspiracy involved with Amy Bach, who ran Feeding Our Future. And I forget the name of the other. There's another person involved as well, whose wife ran one of these daycare centers, which was then shut down after alleged fraud. So there is
I'm sorry, can
some
you say
level
that
of
again? It didn't
conspiracy.
come through for me. Sorry about that.
No problem. So in fact, actually, it may have not been the co-founder. It may have been the city council member. I'm gonna confirm that in a second, but there have been multiple instances of like some local level conspiracies occurring with this, which is typical for fraud. This is why I call my claim to be pretty measured and pretty moderate. I'm not making the claim that, like I said, I think I said this, and if I didn't, I want to reiterate, or if I want to make it clear, I don't think every Somalian is responsible for this fraud. I don't think that you can say that. I think that if there's somebody who committed a crime, they should be prosecuted. If there's somebody who didn't, then they shouldn't. And I know I said this. I think this scandal specifically is more of a Democrat Tim Walz issue than it necessarily is a Somalian issue, because the MDE had responsibility of oversight, which they failed to do. Tim Walz had responsibility to oversee the MDE, which he failed to do. I mean, if we can get past that, if we could just say, okay, at the very least, a whole bunch of negligence. We don't know how far the rabbit hole goes. We're going to have to withhold judgment until there's a whole bunch more investigation from the feds, who are already investigating now because this is a political issue. If we're ready to grant that, I mean, a little bit to Ash's point, I'm not going to go as far as Ash does, but a little bit to Ash's point, I mean, different immigrant groups do have different like statistical measures, right? We can look at this. I mean, people from Somalia, like the immigrants that come from Somalia, predictably, I think because of the war-torn nature of that country, are not going to be as they're going to use welfare more often, and they're going to be more inclined to criminality, just statistically speaking, than other immigrant groups. So if we have a set amount of immigrants that we're taking in every year, why not focus on, I don't know, Mexico? Or
because the Statue of Liberty literally says, "Take in your tired poor, take in the people that you're wretched rags." I don't have the quote in front of me, but I mean, do we rewrite the Statue of Liberty for you, Lactoid, to say only the smartest, richest immigrants are allowed? Because I know that's what Trump's saying with the whole, it's a meme, the Trump card thing, right? But Lactoid, you have to realize these things, that what's more American than trying to fraud the government, okay? Our literal president that you voted for, it literally did that multiple times and got away with it. And he's still getting away with it with the Bitcoin scam. What's more American than when the Irish groups back in the 1860s would do the same thing? They would vote as a block. They would go in there, they would shave their mustaches and vote again. What's more American than having the Italian groups going out and doing schemes, drug running and gambling? I'm not condoning this behavior. But what
I understand that
it's ridiculous
required a lot of action
to have a double standard here.
Actually, can I
put it to a whole group?
The substance that we were talking about? Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt like too bad, but I did want to actually point out that as far as I understand it, and at least in my research, Tim Walz actually did contact the FBI, I believe, or at least one of the members of his government did. And he also added $5 million for new investigators, data analytics, and a fraud tracking system in order to try and further uncover this fraud. So I do believe that there could be some negligence here. I'm not going to dispute that, but I also think that there is fairly sufficient evidence showing that like the government of Minnesota has been trying to crack down on this, even if ineffectively. I think that kind of leans me against some kind of like greater conspiracy mindset, honestly. Given that they handed it off to the feds.
Just to be clear, the Minnesota Department of Education also contacted the FBI. But the problem is they had the authority themselves to deal with this issue, refused to do so, were informed by other people that they needed to do so, and at every opportunity instead encouraged people, for instance, the Feeding Our Future scam, whatever you want to call it, to investigate themselves rather than carry out the investigation as the Minnesota Department of Education. In fact, they made some of these encouragements at some point after contacting the FBI, still allowed Feeding Our Future to basically claim their own innocence and not actually delve deeper into the subject. It wasn't until the feds really got involved that the prosecutions happened. So
And who
at
were
best,
the feds
these
at that
people
time?
are
Right. Yeah. My basic point is that, like, I just think it's fundamentally unlikely that there was some kind of conspiracy here by the Minnesota Department of Education to, like, cover up on the behalf of the Somalians if they were to give this case to the feds, who then did these indictments and prosecutions.
Who
right?
were
Like,
Democrats?
that-
Just to
to be clear, they gave
It
the
was the
they
Joe
gave
Biden
the feds this
administration.
information.
You're saying that the
And
Democrats
then
were
went back
covering up
to hold on.
in
They
Minnesota.
went back to the people they were accusing of fraud and recommending to the FBI. I think it is more likely that they just couldn't get away with not reporting it anymore because probably people were saying that they were going to go to the FBI if they didn't do something. But again, we're still trading information. We're still refusing to investigate. Had all the authority to investigate. And again, if I tell the cops about you, but then I go to you in secret meetings and at some point, and I'm a cop myself, but I'm saying, hey, you've committed some kind of federal crimes. I'm getting heat from upstairs. I give you information maybe about the investigation. I tell you, hey, just, let me know that you're innocent so I can say I did my job. I think that does imply, it doesn't prove conspiracy. I do think it engenders suspicion at the very least. I don't think that it's unlikely. Or that can you tell me one reason that you have to say that it's unlikely that these people were not in league? Or sorry, that these people were in league in some way? I don't understand your claim.
Can't prove a negative. I don't understand. How do I prove that to you? How do I prove that they weren't in league with each other? What?
We're
just talking about, Ash.
No, sorry. What's your basis for it? Like, I could rephrase it.
That the federal government under Joe Biden, the Biden regime, as a lot of conservatives like to say, under the Biden regime, were able to carry out these prosecutions. That's what I would say as a retort to your conspiracy. Now, I understand
something I'm pointing out is that they had the
Minneapolis
authority to prosecute it themselves. They didn't. At some point after recommending the case to the FBI, which you're holding as evidence that they did not want to.
I'm holding as evidence as Democrats did not, because that was part of the debate prompt. Is that is there fraud, and then are the Democrats running cover?
Let me get in on here. £5 from Riz. What the fuck says thoughts on Musk, Vance, and others elevating this video instead of official state investigations, real journalists, etc. And then $5 from Robert Paulson to say legal Haitian immigrants have an incarceration rate of 282 per 100,000, which is 26% lower than the average for all legal immigrants, 380 per 100,000. Thank you for the $5. Go ahead.
Say Haitians?
Legal Haitian immigrants is what he says. Yeah.
He's confusing his black immigrants right now. We're talking about Somalians.
I'm just reading the super chat,
we're
bro.
talking about Somalians, not the Haitians. Sorry. Don't get confused. I know it's confusing for you. They all look the same. I get it. But
and
$10
from the pleb to say WDE did terminate the funding for Feeding Our Futures in 2020. But a judge reversed that decision, and then the feds went after them in 2022. So Rube is a dumbass for saying MDE did nothing, and just in general. Thank you for the $10.
Yeah, this is why I don't think there's enough here to say that, and like I said, we're going to find out when as the investigation goes on, the federal investigation. But I don't think there's enough here to say definitively that there is some kind of link between Tim Walz like Tim Walz knew about it, man, and he was funneling the money and he had it all figured out. I think that's like pretty.
Which is not my claim, to be clear. I know people are going to accuse me of that anyway.
Can I make something real quick though? That's the whole point of the video, though, right? Because like today.
Hold on, real quick. Let me just and that's not Ash's point, right? But that's the point that I've seen. I think some of the more extreme right wingers make, which I think is too far out there. I think that my claim is limited to the governor of the state had responsibility to oversee the MDE, which had responsibility to oversee the Feeding Our Future, and we have auditors' reports that they failed, and we have evidence of when they are now forced, because of the lawsuit, forced by a judge to go back to funding Feeding Our Future. We have pressure being put on the MDE by powerful people within the state to not look into this, to not push this, to not try to remove funding from Feeding Our Future. I think that's where the scandal is. The scandal is how easily people were, how naive they were, how easily they were taken by scammers, and how simply allegations of racism were enough to scare them away from doing the kind of investigations that they were required to do. And then I think that is the black mark right now. And I think that's why Tim Walz is not running again. I think, let's be real, I don't think that the Tim Walz, if something else comes out, I'll fucking eat crow. But this is very fucking strangely timed, right? All of a sudden, this all starts happening, and then Tim Walz is like, "Yeah, I'm not going to run again because it's going to hurt him."
That's my point, though. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just also wanted to note 2 other pieces of evidence. So, like, I just got like a whole big research thing right here that I've been kind of looking through, and I'm trying to go back and read. Also, it is worth noting that the Minnesota Department of Education actually did defund briefly, I believe, Feeding Our Future. I'm forgetting the year exactly. I don't have it in my notes, but they did. Yeah, 2020. They did actually begin defunding it, and also at the same time.
So that's a claim. Sorry, it's 2021. I don't know if they actually successfully defunded it during 2020, but in 2021, they issued a set of deficiencies. This is according to the report from the auditor's report. They issued a set of deficiencies, said these are the things that you're not compliant with. They initiated a process to terminate Feeding Our Future's funding. They issued a second set of deficiencies due to issues with financial viability, management, blah, blah, blah. In May 13th of 2021, they vacated the notice of proposed termination and disqualification, deferring the first set of serious deficiencies. And in June, they deferred the second set of serious deficiencies. So they said, this is everything that's wrong with you people, and this is why you should lose funding, and then deferred both of these recommendations later on. So when we're talking about whether they did nothing, it's not that they literally did nothing and sat on their hands all day. That's not the claim. It's whether or not they were effectively prosecuting what should have been seen as obvious fraud. So one of my claims earlier, so maybe I'll say it openly, just so it's clear for everybody. If you encourage the person that you suspect of fraud to declare themselves innocent and don't check their work, that makes me suspicious of you. At the very least, you're negligent and retarded, and you can't be trusted with good governance. I've been outlandish before during this debate. Is what I just said outlandish?
I think so. You can. I'm not going to criticize you for being distrustworthy of or having concern about a process, but the only reason why you know about this, Ash, is because a YouTuber went out there and did it. That's the fucking problem. The only reason why we're talking about this is because a YouTuber who is a propagandist for the Trump administration is going out there, going after targets that they deem necessary to go after.
Sure.
And they're soft
but
targets.
Where do we go after I say,
targets.
hey, this guy sounds like he has Down syndrome. He's not a good orator. He didn't do good journalism. He could have just followed the exact same procedure that investigators used previously to convict people, such as setting up long-term surveillance at these locations in order to prove that there were fewer children going in than they were billing for instance, or filing a Freedom of Information Act request on, hey, these people are billing. When are these people billing for? Oh, well, they're billing on days that they're closed. Well, that's obvious fraud. Somebody should have spotted this. He's not a good journalist. Right-wingers, when they get into media of any kind, they often fall flat on their face because they refuse to go. They try to reinvent the wheel. They refuse to go back and see how people successfully carried out these operations in the past. I agree. I'll grant everything that you're saying. But what we're left with is a retard stumbled onto a massive fraud scheme, and while they got the details incorrect, they were directionally correct.
But doesn't
Yeah, this
if I may,
yeah,
if I may ask, because this has been bothering me throughout the whole thing. Like, indulge me for a moment. Yes, there very much likely is fraud in some of the places, right, that have been pointed out here and have been talked about. We know that for a fact there's been fraud in Minnesota before. We have convictions under the Biden administration for this. But the directionally correct thing is my issue. If we incentivize, as I believe the White House is doing, right, this, as your words, retards to go out and do ineffective, inefficient investigations in journalism, quote unquote, what you're going to get is a lot of false positives. And we know through the harassment many of these Somali daycares have received, right, that this is going to be the result of it. Tim Walz himself has received much harassment, with the president himself retweeting a video
Not enough.
accusing him of being part of Hortman's murder, right? Like, this stuff happens. So when we have people, right, a media landscape that is encouraged and propped up by the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, Elon Musk, right, all encouraging people out to go out there and do shit journalism, even if they, find something, the process itself is harmful overall to the American people. Look at the people in I think it was the Blaze, who accused a Capitol police officer falsely of being the J6 pipe bomber, and that went viral for a while. Look at the people who accused the Brown shooter, the Palestinian guy, for being the Brown shooter. They were all convinced that this kid had gone and shot up 12 people at Brown University, and it turned out that was totally false. When you have a media landscape that the vice president promoting Haitians going around eating cats and dogs, these all have negative effects. So regardless of whether or not, right, this Nick Shirley guy happened to find some fraud here and there, right, even though I watched the video, he didn't have really any strong evidence. Doesn't this whole process kind of stink? Isn't that the problem here?
Yeah,
You
no,
have to remember,
listen, I'll
Wick,
totally
you have to
agree.
remember, Wick,
In
though-
fact, I'll give you the best reasoning for it. I think it does suck because it indicates a culture in which we don't have good governance. The people who are supposed to be the watchdogs are either complicit or simply negligent. And the cost for that is you get a bunch of retarded citizen journalists who are able to really just coast on occasionally getting things correct. So all
You're
you
missing
have
the
to
mark,
do.
Ash. You're missing
Go
the
ahead.
mark completely.
Go ahead.
You're missing the mark. The
What am I
whole
thinking?
point is that you have a right-wing controlled narratives going out that spread like wildfire, because lies are easier to click on. Rage bait is easier to spread than truth. Look, I love, one thing that Lactoid has on that I always appreciate is that he will get into the weeds, even if his conclusions, I think, are horrendous and incorrect. That's fine. But it's good that he goes into the weeds. I don't appreciate when we have the right wing completely controlling this administration, the people you vote for, completely trying to
I didn't
control a
vote for
narrative.
them. I'm not right wing.
sorry.
I'm not a Republican.
I'm talking to
reading
Lactoid
off
then.
the same
I'll talk
report
to
that
Lactoid.
Lactoid did.
I'll talk to Lactoid when I
Lactoid's
say
also
that.
not a
Ash, you keep
Republican.
saying I'm not a Republican, but I
voted for him though, so I mean that's fair
400
enough.
bits real quick. 400 bits from Feder Methodist. Thank you for 400 bits. Says aliens have been
Hey,
eating the
Feder.
cats in the USA for decades. You aren't old enough to remember Alf. I'm old enough to remember Alf, but go. Thank you for the 400 bits. Go ahead, please.
You're on
Yeah,
good
so
hard.
the whole idea is that we need to have truth back into journalism. This is not real journalism, number one. It's meant for entertainment, number two. And number three, you're right. It is retarded and stupid. It's not going, but it's effective. The fact that Tim Walz is stepping down is just proving the point that the left wing should just go out and make live videos, right? Shouldn't we just go to, I don't know, Oklahoma? Let's go to Tulsa and let's start asking around to see if there's any sort of corruption going on with the Irish community there, or perhaps the, I don't know, any sort of conservative groups. Let's start with the mega churches. Let's start with the evangelicals. Why do we have churches be tap exempt status? Should they have taxes? Should they not be taxed? That's kind of ridiculous, right? Like this is the bullshit. I don't agree with these things, by the way. I'm just reflecting.
But yeah, go out and check out
what
fucking
I'm saying
Medicaid fraud.
is I'm reflecting.
Like, oh, these people are billing for
is.
how many, dozens and dozens of seniors, but there's only so many inside.
You're justifying it. This is it's
I am justifying
$5 from Cryborn to say Lactoid W. Thank you for the $5. But I do want
again. All you have to do is just go back to okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to use Wick's point earlier as evidence where he says, well, Ash, you are a Republican, right? No, I'm not. I've never voted Republican. Here's the problem. You can be a Democrat without affirming the values of socialism or communism or workers' rights or unions or anything like that. Principles of non-interventionism, anti-colonialism. You can be a Democrat without affirming those actively, but you can't be a Democrat unless you approve the foreign masses coming in, setting up voting blocks that are designed to take advantage of your local services that were supposed to be sold to the American people on protecting the poor. And anytime you call this out, you're regarded as like just this vile, racist right-winger or whatever have you. I'm sorry. It's not working anymore.
You don't have proof, Ash. You don't.
If you want to, I do have proof.
I know Fox News pumped into your brain.
What are you talking about, Fox News? I am reading off the same exact report that Lactoid is.
I
have not made one claim based on the video.
Go ahead, Shenandoah, then Lactoid. Shenandoah, then Lactoid, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't even think that's factually true. Bernie Sanders, for the longest fucking time, was anti-immigration. And I mean, there are nowadays, it's turning around where there are anti-immigration Democrats. This isn't really a new thing. Honestly, there was a 10-year period in the Democratic Party where a very, very large majority of Democrats were pro-immigration. And that seems to be changing. So I just don't think that's true anymore. Hell, I don't even think I'm that extreme on immigration. I still would vote Democrat,
What 10-year period are we talking about?
The Hillary period, roughly. The Hillary to Kamala period.
All right.
But I don't even think that's
I don't think Bernie was
chief. Come on.
I do remember Bernie making some statements about how this was I think longer ago than that. I'll have to go back and check.
Yeah,
but
this was probably the early 2000s.
This was a while ago. The immigration has really been become a partisan issue, and I guess I'll kind of go through. Wick, you can answer. I'll answer your question, and then I had something to say to Shenandoah as well. So your question as to the broad idea of journalism, right? Doesn't it suck when you have low rate journalists that are going around and doing this kind of on the ground shit, and then people come away with the wrong idea? True. This is, I think, a perfectly fair criticism. Like I said, I wasn't hanging my hat on this guy's video. I've heard some criticism that some of the allegations are unfounded, but here's the other thing, right? Journalists, especially small journalists, aren't going to have the same access to resources, and small independent media aren't going to have access to the same resources that larger agencies are going to have. And will this inevitably lead to circumstances in which they don't do as much follow-up, or they don't have the resources to do as much digging as perhaps CNN or even some of the local news channels in Minnesota? True. But at the same time, what you're saying works the opposite way. Do we want to dramatically discourage small journalists from doing investigatory reporting, or do we also
just to address that point real quick? I think we absolutely want to disincentivize journalists, quote unquote, for doing bad journalism. That should be something we want to disincentivize.
How much money do you think Nick Shirley made from this video?
Okay. Please, give me a second, right? The fact that they can get everything wrong and still be lauded as truth seekers is a problem. And I'm not talking specifically about Nick Shirley here.
Did he get everything
he has
wrong?
a specific problem with telling the truth, and we can look at that through his reporting on Ukraine and other issues that he's had.
Oh, I just
But
don't know this guy.
setting that aside, right? We can, again, I gave you 3 examples where very mainstream Republican thought leaders, MAGA influencers, etc., have put their hat on this guy is the shooter. This guy is the bomber. We know this because of gate analysis and all these things and all this investigation we've done. And they were absolutely, completely wrong. Yes, they should pay a price for that. And the problem we have now is that they're being rewarded. And so there is no incentive to get it right. There's only an incentive to attack your enemy. That's it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think I'm really going to fight you much on this one.
Yeah.
I think that if your criticism is this guy's, I'll watch the video. I'll look into this guy more because I really just don't know that much about this person, this Nick Shirley guy. But
We love his Ukraine videos. Let's just leave it at that.
Maybe he's actually a great journalist then. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll have to watch those videos. But the broad criticism of, I think this guy is full of shit. I think that there's like a kind of an industry of journalists that are full of shit. I'm gonna say it on both sides. Fair enough.
A YouTuber.
I think that's fair.
YouTuber.
Well, you can have YouTube journalists. Like I think CoffeeZilla, for example, is a YouTuber that's also a journalist. I think he does a really good job. You have examples of people who just kind of come from nothing, that just start a channel and they put in the work and it comes out pretty nicely. So I wouldn't just discount somebody who's a journalist just because they're a YouTuber. And then Shenandoah, please remind me what you were saying beforehand, like your last point, if you remember it. If you don't, that's okay.
I only barely remember. My basic point was just to get against Ash. It was just that, like, I don't think it is a requirement for Democrats, especially these days, to be pro-immigration. I don't think that's necessarily a requirement. I think that's something that's changing. I don't think it's been true in the past. That's why I brought up Bernie Sanders, and so, like, yeah, I just don't think it's a requirement.
Fair enough. I remember.
Yeah.
I was going to back up one of Ash's point, which is that the auditor's report did cite like concern about being accused, like the negative press about being accused of like not helping minorities. This was one of the cited reasons why the MDE said that like they were hesitant to take action.
Right.
The fact that like that is a reality for government agencies, I think is concerning, not just in this situation, but I can imagine potentially it being for other situations as well, right? That culture right there, like that needs to go. Like we need to have
isn't that just
government
pointing out
agencies
introspection,
able to investigate.
Don't we want some introspection going on in the government? Don't we want them to be able to say, hey, before we release this, let's talk about some of the problems of us releasing these kind of things?
Before you answer that, let me go through. Before you answer that, let me get through a couple of super chats. $5 from Tessicle Johnson to say immigrants are a scapegoat to blame for all of society's woes. It's absolute propaganda. $5 from Madassa to say I'm more upset that none of the Somali daycares were pirate themed. Thank you for the $5.
That would have been great.
And then $5 from Deej Nuts to say, has anyone asked how many children per hour these daycares need to have per hour they're open to get over 1 million in CCAP funds? Thank you for the $5. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So if I could actually kind of jump in here just for another second, what I was gonna say actually is that, like, yeah. So, I think what sorry, what's your name again in Pursuit? What's the name you want to go by? Dorian. Yeah. What Dorian and I are saying is essentially that, like, hey, look, is there probably some legitimate grounds to be concerned about a racist backlash when you do certain government actions? Sure. Like that actually could have some valid ground, especially in our current political environment, where people are very, very quick to jump to like collective guilt and racism if like a few people in your community do something bad. Now, I'm actually going to agree and say that there could and probably was some serious excess, right? Like there definitely is this like Democrat problem where Democrats tend to like really, really over leverage how much they want to be perceived as not racist, and will sometimes do this at the expense of doing things correctly. So it's not like this is entirely implausible either, even if it might come from a legitimately benevolent point. I would just challenge the idea that this is like the primary motivation as to why the Minnesota Department of Education did not investigate this fraud effectively. As far as I understand it, the really, really big main reasons were like they had limited funding, which is one of the main reasons that they punted it off to the feds, and also that a lot of their legal advisors and a couple judges were advising them and saying that like, hey, you probably can't win this in court with the evidence that you are able to acquire, which is why then they punted it off to Joe Biden's federal government to investigate, which actually started to get some results. That's not necessarily anything to do with ideology. That's just like a logistics issue. You could say that they deserve more funding in order to be better at investigating these types of problems, but that's not like a problem of Democrats. That's just like a problem of inefficient and like poorly funded governance.
And I think that's the big disagreement, right? Like,
no, pay us
like
more and then we'll start doing our jobs? Absolutely not. No, there were specific procedural issues within this report that were laid out, like, for instance, not actually interviewing the people who were accused of fraud, covering, sorry.
Well, they also couldn't get
I want to be careful with that accusation. Sorry,
well, hold on. No, hold on. Failure to follow up on reports and failure to properly investigate reports. That was like in the auditor's report. This was one of the accusations levied against the MDE. And so, right. And so when you have the MDE say, like, oh, well, and they do say this, you're right. They do say, well, you know,
but you're saying that it's still going on, right?
Well,
like, that's the whole point. Like,
neither of us made that
I don't think it's happening right now.
Get it out, please.
I don't think that's what's happening right now. But in the report, you're right. The MDE does say, like, oh, we weren't sure that we had enough information that, you know, were investigatory materials to actually do the things that we needed to do. You're right. They did say that as one of the reasons. But the criticism is, well, if that's the case, couldn't you have improved your own standing? Couldn't you have gotten more information if you did your job? This is one of the criticisms of the auditor's report. Like, you didn't do your job. You didn't get enough information. And so, yeah, that's one-sided reason, I suppose. But the fact that it's cited at all, that they're scared of being called racist, like that's government inefficiency is always going to be there. And I think that we should always criticize it when it comes up, and we should always try to make it better, right? But I think we were concerned about doing our job because we didn't want to be called racist. That is a culture war issue at this point, right? That is a question of why are people so terrified of being called racist to the point where they're concerned about investigating potential fraud, like
but,
that.
Yeah, and just to go with the like the converse of that or the inverse of that or whatever word you want to use here, like, is it not racist if you're only out there going to the Somali daycares, right? Like, I don't see him knocking on the white daycare doors, right? I don't see him knocking on the doors for non-minorities to check up on them. And so you got the same kind of issue we have with Abrego Garcia, where he's probably going to get off with everything because there is a court case.
But do you know why that is, Wick?
I'm about to tell him, right? There's a court case pending where he's been subject to undue persecution in the prosecution. He is likely to win that case. And so when you have groups like Nick Shirley going out there and only going after the brown people fraud, but then you have Trump pardoning the white people fraud, racism, it's not a crazy
What's my position on that guy? Mulch him.
Those are
just to be clear. No, I'm going to jump in here because I called it at the very beginning of the show. I said this explicitly. Yes. I called that guy out, not by name, but by position. I said mulch him. No, the guy that Trump just pardoned. You're not even fucking listening. The guy that Trump just pardoned. I said mulch him. Deport him. In either order, frankly. Do what you want. But get rid of him. But you won't take that position against the Somali Americans.
I don't want anyone exiled. I don't want anyone molded.
What are you talking about?
My position is clear as day. Fraud is bad. whether it's done by Somali immigrants who are prosecuted under the Biden DOJ,
Their position's
or
not
whether
clear
it's
as
done
day
by
because you
crypto
accused him of
scammers
racism for
pardoned by the
investigating it.
Trump DOJ. Either way, fraud is bad.
No, Wick, you accused him of racism for investigating it. Did you not?
No, I asked, is racism not a valid concern when you have people like Nick Shirley and all these other people?
No, you said
going
it's the
after
converse of that.
specifically
If you actually go out and
minority-
check these people who were given, as far as we could tell, a free
They ain't
pass
checking the
to
white
commit
people.
fraud. What's the crime rate in Minnesota broken down by race?
What's it broken down by immigration status?
What's it broken down by race? We actually don't track that for second
We don't,
generation immigrants.
I don't. Yeah, I've been looking for it. So we don't track immigrant groups by where they're from.
So it sounds like
the European countries do.
They had might be valid.
The European countries do, and in those European countries where they do track it, I think Sweden does, and I believe the UK does. Somalians consistently are near the top in terms of like crime commission rates. It's just a fact compared to like other immigrant groups. But
Minnesota's 94% white, and I think that
what was the crime
not just
rate
the per capita
for
rate, but
1860s?
the overall
It's going to follow
rate.
the same thing. Early immigrant groups,
The
first generation
1860s. Oh,
immigrants
you're
that are
so
poor.
gay, bro. Your asshole is the size of a fucking tennis ball.
Oh, I know history is
What
not
does
your
him
strong
have
suit.
being a faggot have to do with anything? Like, it's fine.
Hey, careful with the language.
It's being the victim is the problem. Listen, I'm not.
What victim? Who's a victim here?
Jesus
You're
Christ,
playing
why
the
can't
victim.
I?
Are you fucking
I'm doing it
kidding
right
me?
now. I'm victimizing you at this very moment. Because you have to go back to
You're scared of the brown
1860.
guy
You have
doing-
to say, "Oh, listen, isn't it true?
Oh, I'm
isn't
sorry,
it
I'm bringing up
true
history.
that they had a bunch of?" Yeah, no, it is a problem to go back to 1860 when we're talking about crimes being committed now.
For
Sorry, go ahead.
immigrants. It's basically not unusual for immigrants, especially like early on when they immigrate, to have troubles integrating and to have like higher than normal crime rates, and that like we don't think that that's
no,
anything unique
Shenandoah. You
to
do
Somalis,
understand that
right?
crime rates among immigrants are far lower than
Yes,
crime rates among
I'm aware.
natural
Yeah,
born citizens.
like usually it's like second generation.
Maybe not the
Broadly,
second
yeah.
generation one.
I was about to bring
Okay,
that
but
up. I don't think
second
that's.
generation immigrants are not immigrants; they're citizens.
Not to Lactoid. Well, maybe to Lactoid. Not
I'm
to
just
Ash.
saying what they are.
Certainly.
I don't
Certainly
consider them
to the
immigrants
paperwork
anymore.
American
if
guy.
you're born here, you're
you
a
know.
citizen. That's our law.
Yeah. Ash doesn't believe that. So, you know,
Hold on. Do you
and
not
that's
believe that,
why-
Ash?
That they're citizens? By law, they're citizens.
That's not the question.
No, okay, so the core question of like whether or not you're an American, like, okay. I would say usually yes.
It's just embarrassing. But please,
wait.
I need.
Was
we
that
need
a
to
problem
deport all
for you?
people
Hold on
like
a second. If I
We need
set
to
up,
deport
okay,
people like you.
we
You
set
do
up
not
a
believe in
college.
America.
Just real quick, let me
You
make
don't
a
believe
little
in
money.
America.
$5
Get the fuck
from
out.
Audacity.
They
Say,
also
look,
don't believe
Wick,
in America. That's
not
the
all
problem.
Somali-run daycares are fraudulent, but a lot of fraudulent daycares are run by Somalis. And again, if you can find evidence that a daycare, Somali-run, white person-run, doesn't matter. I'm colorblind here, right? If you find fraud,
No, you're
prosecute
not,
that
because you
fraud.
justified apprehension and failure to prosecute under the
I have not
concern
justified a
of
single-
racism. However,
What
you don't
position of
apply that,
fraud
to,
have
for
I
instance,
justified?
for taxes. For me,
Hold on,
you
can
don't
you-
say,
can
"Oh,
you tell
this
me
could
my
cause a
stance?
racist backlash."
Can you repeat
So
to
maybe
me
we should
my
lay off the
stance? What's your
taxes.
understanding of my stance here?
My understanding of your stance, as you've given it,
Yeah.
you know, it's scattered
Now, I
because
made it very
you've
clear.
defended. No. You made a claim that contradicts your prior claims.
Hold on.
If we just take it
Okay,
on
what
on face
claim have
value.
I made that's contradicted my prior claims? Let's start there.
Isn't the converse of concern for racism? Isn't the converse of concern for racism as justification for not prosecuting, not following up correctly? Isn't the converse of that Nick Shirley, if he does go out to investigate Somali-run daycare centers that have not been properly investigated, doesn't that mean that he is being racist by focusing on them?
Yeah, I mean these aren't necessarily
Yeah, they are.
contradictory positions.
I think that they are
I'm asking
because
you a
you're
question,
offering
like, if you're
cover
worried
for
about-
fraud.
If you're worried about different governmental organizations being worried about being racist, then why aren't you worried about people who actually are racist or doing something that has racist outcomes going out there only targeting like minorities.
Racist outcomes. What the
yes,
fuck?
if you had a cop who only ever stopped black people, only, right? He never stopped a white person, and he's only stopping black people. Would you consider that maybe sufficient evidence to look into racist claims?
Yeah, no, that would be bad. Like he's racist.
So when you
Fine.
have Nick Shirley, who's again only going to Somali daycares, and he's not going to any other, I think it's at least worth questioning and asking, why is he only going to these things? And my problem overall,
does it have
with,
anything to do?
finish.
Sorry,
my problem.
No, does it have
with the
anything to
Republican
do
Party
with
as it
not
stands
actually
today
investigating them on the basis of race?
It's a rotating Rolodex of which minority are we going to be mad at today? Is it going to be the Indians because of the H-1B visas?
Okay.
Is it going to be the Haitians for eating the cats and dogs? Is it going to be the Somalis for all these things? Is it going to be the Venezuelans for drug running? What minority are we going to pick on today? But
And you
they
can
don't
never
care
look into
about
them
the
because you
fraud.
could be
They
racist.
don't care about any of these things. This is all an excuse
It's
to
different
target
when you are
minorities.
racist, Ash. Just admit
Wait,
it.
can
and
I-
just
It's
move
not.
on.
It's
And
not,
then we can
Ash.
have that
Like,
Lactoid
I want to ask.
Jesus.
So, Wick,
Go ahead.
leaving Shirley's video aside, I mean, the investigations into this daycare fraud has dramatically disproportionately come up with Somali.
If you
Somalians.
investigate, sure. If
And
you
so,
investigate all of a town,
real quick.
well,
So
let
when
me
you're
clarify
saying-
my position. If you investigate all a town and you find that only black people or only Somalis or only these things are guilty, then that's not racist, obviously.
No, yes. That's what I'm trying to argue. What I'm trying to argue is that you can accuse Nick Shirley of selectively targeting the Somali daycares,
And Republicans
but in
do a
order,
little bit, yes.
but what you have to be doing actually, you would have to be saying that law enforcement is now unfairly targeting Somalis because
Why?
the dramatic disproportionate amount of people found guilty for this fraud thus far have been Somalian.
I don't necessarily
Do-
have
do
to
you-
do
do you
that
think-
because,
do you
again,
think
if the
that-
law enforcement agency looks into 10 different daycares, some white, some Somali, and it's only the Somali ones that have committed fraud, then they're not doing anything racist, are they?
What I'm trying to say is, please, okay. So
If they're
before the
only looking
Shirley,
into white daycare centers, would they be racist?
wait.
Okay,
No,
go
we're
ahead.
not going on there.
All right.
Before the Shirley video ever came out, we've had convictions on this, right?
Yeah.
And we've had convictions on
And
this.
they have been
and
white people. Somalis have been convicted of this.
Vast majority are
dramatically
Somali.
disproportionate amount of them are Somalis, right? Like
But
overwhelming.
they also have
Not
white
disproportionate
people
amount.
who have been convicted.
There
of the
are
same
a few. There are a few.
One out
right?
of 70.
That's
or
what
Yeah,
makes
one out
it
of 80.
less likely that this was done under racist
Somalis
things.
aren't
They
the only ones
probably
that steal
investigated a bunch
people.
of different people. It
Yes,
turns out that most of them were Somalis, and that's fair. But they prosecuted everyone left, right, and center.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it would be
Justice-
like saying
But-
Do you know?
but-
Have you seen
but-
the Statue of
but
Justice?
please,
What's she wearing?
please. Oh my God!
She's
please.
wearing a blindfold. That's
Oh
for
my
a
God.
fucking reason.
That
She's not
was
checking
cheesy.
to see if they're
Lactoid's
Somalian.
only a
So-
lawyer. He doesn't know that, okay?
It was very cheesy. So
I'm just saying it's true.
Yeah, sure.
How
yes.
dare you
and
have
we
values?
got
Wick?
we got
Easy.
the blindfold on the Stat Lady Liberty. We got the give us our tire, give us. Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
My
that's the
bad.
point. Is that we
So,
do believe? I think Shenandoah and Wick, we do believe in.
They're playing a fucking
in
Yu-Gi-Oh
in a
game
part
where
of
you just
America
throw out these
that
random
is trying to
phrases and
this
hope
kind of stuff
that they're
versus you
and
guys
hope
don't.
that I'm not going to pay attention
Okay.
to obvious
Okay.
fucking fraud. It's so fucking ridiculous.
So okay, listen. Like your point before is, what if they are disproportionately like Nick Shirley or other people are like they've picked Somalians and they're
Yeah, not
disproportionately
disproportionately,
and
exclusively.
sure exclusive sure you're saying exclusively sure.
Exclusively.
I don't know how many daycare centers Nick Shirley actually investigated in his video, but by chance, if we
It was
just
a
look at
9,
the
by the way.
proportion, okay, well, I'm pretty sure like almost 90%, maybe it's a little bit less, but almost 90% of the defendants that have been convicted of this fraud have been Somalian. So he's,
He only
maybe
went
we would-
after the Somali ones. Yes, we know that.
but like statistically speaking, that's not even that far off.
So
It is actually
you're
sort of
saying
like-
that we need to
it's
have
not- it's
equal
kind of in
crime
line.
across all races. Is that what you're saying? Maybe you're
No,
the real woke guy. Holy shit, Lactoid.
I'm-
I didn't realize
I'm
how woke you were. Fuck me.
No, that's not. I'm not saying. I don't know. I don't know how you got there from what I said, but that's cool. What I'm saying is that if you're going to accuse Nick Shirley of racism, and by the fact that he's looked into almost exclusively, okay, Somalian daycares, And then we look at the actual conviction, like the convictions, and it is vastly disproportionately Somalian. It doesn't seem like maybe Nick Shirley's not actually motivated by racism.
I'll explain it this way.
$5 from Audacity, and then I'll let you explain it.
Okay.
Say, Justice can't see why kids love the Cinnamon Toast flavor of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Thank you for the $5.
I mean, you taste it. That's the difference. Okay, anyway. So, Lactoid, it would be just as cringe for me to say, and albeit a lot of people do believe this, they say, look at who are the billionaires of the world right now? They're disproportionately white. And therefore, America's a racist country because they're white. Okay? I believe that's cringe. It's also, for me, just as cringe for you guys to be like, holy shit, it's fraud because they are Somalian. That's
no, but
where
hold on.
Wait.
This is a great example, actually. This is a great example. Let's say there was this mass allegation of like fraud against billionaires, and then some documentarian went to all the different like billionaires, like or billionaire banks, firms, etc. And then afterwards, someone said, "Weird. He only went to the white banks. He only talked to the white billionaires." Is that because he was like racist?
That's my point. That's my point. You just made my point for me. Yes, it would be cringe to say that. I agree. We should go after the crimes and not care about the fact that it's a community. Go after the individuals. Shenandoah and I, and Wick now, he kind of is jumping in here. Appreciate it.
No, Wicker offered them cover on the basis of not investigating.
I want to make sure that there's
basis of
actual
race.
interesting content here.
Sure.
$20 from Dirty Deeds
Yeah.
to say, when do I get to give my trash takes? I have no clue what you were talking about. Take my money. I will. $5 from Deej Nuts to say, if you randomly selected 10 businesses with fraud convictions in Minnesota, you're very likely to only select 10 Somali-owned businesses. So here's the thing, as I understand it, and it might not, look, you know what? I won't say this because I don't know if Nick Shirley did this, but one of these people did this, and I do remember this. One of these people who are in the fraud gold rush that they're doing right now picked out Somali-sounding names to go to. And they said it. We're like, we're going to look at the ones that have Somalian-sounding names, and we're going to go check them. I'm not sure if it was Nick Shirley who did that or one of the other ones, but one of them did. So.
Ash, would you consider that racist?
No, not in the slightest. And I wouldn't care if it. Just to be clear, I wouldn't care if it was.
Of course not. Of course not.
It's okay. Justice, it's right. Yeah. I don't think that you actually get to give
justice,
people
so
a pass
therefore
on
we
the
should go
basis of
only
their
after
race
the Somali sounding.
I don't think that you get to shield them from investigation on the basis for fraud on the basis of the race.
You don't care about the fraud. You care of the fact that they're Somalian.
I care a lot about the fraud. It's my fucking money. Not in the case of Minnesota, obviously, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't believe it.
I mean, look, there are just two basic errors here. Like, there would be an error if you were.
I already bit that bullet where I said kill the guy. I have a stronger position on fraud than any of you. Where I said mulch them. I said that about the white guy that.
We don't care about you wanting to kill people. Okay, we don't care about that.
Look, there's like two basic errors here. Like it's obviously like yes, if Democrats were to just like intentionally not investigate a group out of fear of being perceived as racist, that is a bad call on the Democrats' part, right? Do I think that is the primary reason they did not investigate them? I think that's unlikely. I think there are other reasons within that same report that are fairly legitimate. Lazy. Yeah, they could. I mean, like there could be other issues, right? Like, hey, fuck it. But regardless of that, like I can accept that that's an issue. I think the other issue that we're seeing on this panel is like this jump from, hey, look, we need to investigate these people who are doing fraud to like the entire 80,000 Somali American community in Minnesota is like collectively guilty for daycare fraud or for feeding our families fraud, right? I think that is fundamentally suspect. I think that is where we start getting into like genuinely illiberal collective punishment territory, and I don't think that's a good idea.
$10, just real quick. $10 from A.K. Batozai to say, Wick, I can understand only investigating Somali-run places if the suspicion is that the local government is shielding fraud by a certain minority. Thank you for the $10. Continue, please.
That's also a good point.
Do you want to answer that, by the way? Or do you want to puss out again? Because I've asked you this like 3 times and you haven't given me an answer.
But here's the thing. Like, these people who, again, we've pointed out, have falsely accused Capitol police officer for January 6th bomber, who have accused the Haitians falsely again, we know this is false, has been proven to be false, of eating cats and dogs and abducting cats and dogs and pets in Ohio and eating them. We know they falsely accused a Palestinian guy
I'm
of
asking
being
the
the
same
ground
exact
shooter,
question once
right?
you're done,
We
by the
know
way.
consistently they are wrong. They falsely accuse these things. So they are constantly putting out the suspicion that it's only the minorities who are doing this. So under that context, then yeah, I don't think it's appropriate to only go after a certain minority group. I am the only one. Well, no, I won't say that. I am one of the only people who is asking that all fraud be prosecuted and not trying to shield my Republican and non-minority friends. Okay, I'm the
No,
only
you're
one
shielding
doing
your
that.
minority
We got
friends.
people like Debate Board and Chat who are trying to run cover for crypto fraud and other scammers because they're Republican and they're on his side. I am saying lock up every single person, Democrat, Republican, Somalian, white, Indian, black, Native American, Wicker, Lactoider, all of them. Lock them all up
You just did a
if you
Nazi
can convict
salute.
them
Holy
of
shit.
fraud, right? But
You
it's
did.
going to be something I call out if you run cover for the white fraud and say, oh, it's okay that Trump pardoned all those people, and then
No, I believe that you'll do it for
and
the
then
white
you
fraud.
like,
Wick, what was your
we
immediate
need to go
response?
You can
down
go after
really
the
hard
when
Somali
on
you
the
guys.
found out that these
Somalians.
people
I'm
were running
absolutely
cover
gonna
for
do that every
Somalians?
time.
When you
I'm
found
the
out
only
that the
honest person
Minnesota
here.
Department of Education was running cover for Somalians, did you call that out?
Say it one more time.
When you found out that the Minnesota Department of
If-
Education was running cover for Somalians, did you call that
Are they
out?
running cover
Or
for
did you
Somalians? If you
cast
can provide
aspersions
evidence
on
of that,
people
yes, that's
who were
terrible. If
investigating
you're running
a
cover for any
shielded
different group of
community?
people who are running for fraud, no matter who they are, that's terrible. You shouldn't do that. And if it can be found to do that, you should be held accountable to whatever extent the law asks for. Yes,
And
I think
thank
that's
God
true.
for the regime, the Biden regime, to find that fraud and call it
Yeah,
out
Biden.
like
But
it should
here's the
be.
thing: the Biden regime prosecuted those people. They didn't pardon them. They prosecuted those people. They put them in
After
jail.
the failure of Minnesota. And
And that's the thing. There's never enough. It's because
actually
it's a
haven't gotten
D
over
next to his name. You don't care about that, Ash. Okay, you don't give credit where credit is due. I agree.
Oh, no, I
There's
think that's
failure
great.
on the
What was
Minnesota.
going on with
There's
the
failure.
GOP?
The person, okay, I pointed out why I'm upset with it earlier, where I said that the MDE did have authority to prosecute these people and decided not to on the basis of race. And so Wick's claim is that if I investigate a specially shielded community, somebody who is being given racist cover from prosecution, that I must be racist. That was his claim.
When you go only after Somalians and you call them the pirate colony that's taken over and that they're paperwork Americans, that's what makes you racist, Ash. And the fact that you don't see that, the fact that you
But
don't
Nick
see
Shirley
that
didn't do that,
speaks
and
volumes.
Wick did call him racist.
Hold on,
that's not the case.
is there any like? Let's try to be realistic here. Like, is there any reason to potentially like look more into like certain demographics than others? Like here's a great example.
Poor people? Is that no? If you want to say poor, yeah, why not?
Sure.
But when you say
like
color of people's
can,
skin, that's
no,
different,
okay,
Lactoid.
Let me turn it into a different immutable characteristic that all of us recognize as being obviously strongly correlated with crime. Don't you think that like men?
There
Yeah,
it is.
like,
I was wondering.
So like let's say we
Yeah, of
find out
course.
that like a whole
Why
bunch of
not?
crime has happened somewhere, and we're going to like investigate, and then like okay, we have we have resources to investigate. Where are we going to like look? I mean, wouldn't you start with the people that were most likely to do it?
Okay, okay. This is a great. I'll run with your example. If that crime was happening at the Hallmark store, where it's they all the little Christmas decorations, and then
Probably
you
women.
just target and then you just target men, I'm gonna look at you a little weird because I'm gonna say, what's the main demographic that goes to the Hallmark store? It's not
Fair
men.
enough.
That's for fucking sure. So that's what we're saying. It's a little fucking misogynistic for you to go after these men stealing from the Hallmark store when
Well, I think they'd be
most of those
misandrous.
people aren't. Or oh fuck, you're right. God damn it, I'm such a
You're good,
feminist. Fuck. But yeah, no, that's yes. I would say the same thing. You're a misandrist if you're going after one group of people because you don't care about it. You care more.
Yeah.
You care more about the hatred towards the men in that crime versus the crime itself. Now,
Yeah,
you know,
I can.
Ash
but
at least
here's
is straight up
the
with
problem.
it, even though he
I-
thinks it's paperwork.
The problem is your example actually cuts against you because like one of the when in the auditor's report, the criticism was that these services go disproportionately to minorities, and disproportionately to the Somali community, right? I mean, when we're talking about these daycare centers, it's yeah. If you're right, there are certain scenarios other than just like raw crime rate that you should be looking at whenever we're talking about like dispersing police resources or investigatory resources, of course, but at the same time, I think it's also fair to be realistic as to okay, like there's already been an investigation. There's by Democrats, right? And they have
Convictions,
disproportionately,
everything,
yeah, convictions by Democrats. You guys wanted to bring that up. That's fair enough.
I have not harped on Trump
and
hardly as much
hold
as I
on.
should be. So
Sure, you guys
grateful.
can rant about Trump all you want. So the Democrats, they got all these convictions because it was both the Democrats at the state level and it was Democrats at the federal level at the time, right? They got these convictions, and it was dramatically disproportionately Somalian. And so my thought process is, are the Democrats all like being racist in their targeting of Somalians that made it so disproportionate, or is it the case that Somalians
didn't
were
target
disproportionately
Somalians.
involved in the crime?
No, this is the thing you're sneaking in.
Yeah, but
here
now
that's not
we
true.
know. And
They
now we know that the
didn't
Somalians were
They
disproportionately
didn't
involved.
Somalians. They
Yes.
targeted
They
fraud.
cared about the crime, Lactoid. They cared about the crime.
They targeted
there's a
fraud.
yes.
And this,
no,
no,
stop
do you
repeating
not
yourself.
understand the
Stop
difference? Hold on,
you're,
this is a
no,
real
you're repeating
basic
yourself.
difference thing.
I'm gonna respond to
I'm
it.
going to
You're-
target Somalians
God.
versus I'm
You're
going to
responding.
target
You're just-
fraud. And if
I'm
it
trying to
so
respond.
happens that most of the people are Somalians, so be it.
Yeah, I'm trying to respond. You guys are just repeating yourselves. Sure. That's what you guys are saying, that the Democrats were just, they were
Targeting
being
crime,
open-minded.
yes.
They were targeting crime. But now that we know, now that it's been discovered that these crime rings appear to be primarily within the Somali community, right? Disproportionately, wildly disproportionately. And the Somali community is like an insular ethnic community. These things exist. Enclaves exist. Let's not pretend they don't. I mean, we were just talking about the Italians and the Irish just earlier. I think that if we were like cracking down on the mob, I think it'd be pretty ridiculous to say, well, we should look into all mafioso, whether they be Italians or whether
Yes.
Why
they
would that be
be
ridiculous?
All
Germans.
mafia groups
Why
should be
would that be
looked into,
ridiculous?
regardless of
Because-
whether they're Italians or not.
Well,
This
can
is
you
a
just
crazy
go
thing to
after
say.
just go after the spaghetti places?
Because it would
Unless
make
it's a
sense.
Somali
And the tomato shops.
Because it would make sense if you're looking for the mafia, you'd be going into the Italian American communities because that's where the mafia dramatically disproportionately is. Just like it would make sense if you're Nick Shirley and you're looking for fraud, you'd be going into the Somalian communities because we already know from the prior prosecutions that that's where the fraud disproportionately is, right?
That's where the fraud that was disproportionately found is. So if you want to find fraud,
By the
you
Democrats.
go into a locality.
Right.
And if it just so happens that the locality specifically has mostly blacks, mostly whites, mostly Asians, that's fine. But that's not my accusation of what he did, right? He's specifically and only and exclusively going after minorities and ignoring non-minorities. And that is where the problem lies.
Non-minorities are being protected by the government, and Wick will just not
Oh,
address
yes,
this.
they are.
point.
They're being
fraud,
pardoned
and
by
then they-
President
they-
Trump.
No, name one person from Minneapolis who was pardoned by President Trump.
Oh, notice how you have to say it's Minneapolis
Get
specifically.
fucked! Get
What a
fucked!
you're such a loser, Ash.
You know
I
nothing.
can name
All you-
loser,
plenty
The primary
of white
issue,
people
the whole
or MAGA
reason for
Republicans
investigating
who have been
Somalians
pardoned by
within
President
Minnesota
Trump,
specifically,
were
within Minneapolis
guilty,
specifically, is because they were
convicted
given,
of their-
they were shielded
Good
by
point.
the government
Good point,
itself.
Ash.
Hold
If
on,
Yes or
only-
how
no?
many of those
only-
January
Is that the case?
6ers were
If
from
only
Yes or
Tim
no?
Walz was
Michigan
Republican,
Is that the
then
case?
he would
or Minnesota?
he would
whatever.
triple down
Right.
on this.
Was that the case?
Are
Were
you
they
kidding
shielded
me?
on the basis
We
of their
all know this.
ethnicity? Yes or no?
Can I ask a totally irrelevant question?
Oh, no, I want Wick to answer that.
What was your
Again.
question?
Were they
My question?
shielded? Were Somalians in Minneapolis shielded on the basis of race?
If they were, that was wrong, and prosecute the people who did it.
Were they?
Do you have evidence presented?
Yes, I
Okay,
have
present
a
it.
report.
You have a report saying that they thought it might look racist. That's
Yes,
it.
it's from
That's it.
Minnesota
That's not enough
Department of
evidence.
Education oversight.
So
of
Shenandoah,
somebody,
what was your question?
while you're looking into that, I got a question from my chat really quick for you, Wick. If you had one shot, you had a point at one daycare in Minneapolis. You had one shot, and if you got it wrong, if they weren't scammers, like something horrible would happen, like your whole family would blow up. Would you pick a
See what
Somalian
happened.
daycare?
Well, I would pick. What I would do is I would go to find the ones who have already been convicted, and I'd pick one of the ones who's already been.
You don't have access to that information.
I don't have access to that information.
That's
All
what
you know
Nick
is
Shirley did. Lactoid.
Wait. All you know is that is disproportionate amount of Somalians have been found guilty by the investigations that have already been taking place. You don't know which daycares they are. You have to, at random, like maybe not at random, but you have to select one daycare. And if you get it wrong, then your whole family blows up. If you select one, if you select one and there's fraud in it, then your family doesn't blow up. Are you selecting a Somali daycare?
In Minnesota or Michigan or Minnesota specifically? In Minnesota specifically, yes. I'd probably pick one in Minnesota specifically. But
you only would do that because
great thing, this hypothetical is retarded because guess what? No families blow up, right? If you're investigating someone. And in fact, what the whole time, if you get it wrong, right, you might blow up that family or cause that family that you've picked that is wrong, undue stress, undue issues, wrongful convictions perhaps, right, and persecution. And this is my problem with the whole Nick Shirley thing, is people who consistently get it wrong are now in charge of our government, who got it wrong with, again, I'm going to repeat them again, the Haitians eating cats and dogs. Disproven. Wrong. But it was a lie put out there by J.D. Vance and others, right? This administration, who got it wrong and falsely accused a Palestinian man of being the round shooter, right? And killing 12 people. They made up whole stories. They doxed him. They went after him for days and weeks until, oopsie, my bad, it was someone else entirely. They didn't pay a single price for that. And you have people like DebateBoard and other people in my chat saying, oh, now we have to believe the YouTube reporters who consistently make false claims, get it wrong because they don't know what they're doing. They have no process for actually getting it right. And now we have to believe you? Fuck off. I don't believe you anymore. You've ruined any credibility.
Your process is that it's a minority, so don't prosecute. Don't even investigate. It's a minority, don't investigate. That's your process.
It's just gone.
That's the point, Ash.
Again,
you're
it's gone. Your credibility is shot.
Shenandoah did have a question, I think.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to ask, like, do we have any information about, like, the Minnesota GOP did at this time? Like, genuine question, because... you know, obviously, like, yes, we're the Democrats at that time. I believe even currently still in charge of it. It's like a blue state.
They've been in charge for a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's a blue state. But obviously, like, there is a Minnesota GOP. There is, like, an opposition that exists within the government. Were they, like, whistleblowing a lot of this stuff? Or did this mostly just come out from, like, the nonpartisan auditor? Like, I'm actually genuinely curious.
Yeah, this stuff came from the nonpartisan. Yeah, this stuff came from the nonpartisan auditor because the Republicans in Minnesota, I don't think they control the Department of Education. That's going to be
the Department of Education. The commissioners directly, I believe,
Minnesota Department of
handpicked by Walz. The Minnesota Department of Education would be handpicked by Walz.
We're confusing two things because Shenandoah's question is going to after 2020, after the convictions. There's still questions about this. Nick Shirley has this video released
even within the Democrat Party, by the way.
A couple weeks ago.
Even within the Democrat Party, it's not even a matter of.
I'm sorry, Ash.
It's not a matter of partisanship.
I'm still speaking. I think Shenandoah, you're asking why, if this is still going on, are these investigations coming from the Minnesota GOP today? Is that what your question is?
No, actually, my basic question is, like, obviously, we all agree that, like, the people in charge of the Minnesota government have, like, responsibility to properly investigate and prosecute people who are doing crime, right? My question is also, like, we also assume that, like, the opposition in government has a responsibility to whistleblow on the party in power when they are failing to do this. And, like, my question is, like, why is it that, like, people like this Nick guy ended up, like, being able to do this, but, like, the Minnesota GOP did not? That's my question. Like,
I would say it's because they control.
Because it seems like then at that point it's a total.
Was it Nick Shirley?
Like,
Nick Shirley's the one that why we're talking about this now. No, he's an agent of the Trump administration. He's a propagandist.
Right, but Trump controls the GOP. Let's be real.
Okay, well then yes, he's a
let me
propagandist
get
for the
through
GOP.
some super chats here. Got a few. $5.
Just remember, everybody, Ash is not a Republican. Sorry.
Sure, $5 from D's Nuts to say, were the police racist to put more attention on Italian businesses when investigating Italian mob-related activity?
Wig would say yes.
I look, if you ignore the mafia that isn't from Italy and you only go after the Italian mobsters,
If you don't hyper-focus on the tiny minority of people who are not from that community.
To say, if we had social media, the internet, and influencers in the early 1900s, would we be shown more, less, or an equal amount of crime done by Irish Italians, or is there something intrinsic about Somalis? $5.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think there's something intrinsic about Irish and Italians.
Well, I want to comment on that. I mean, with the reaction, like the reaction towards Irish people was, I think, demonstrates that it's not like necessarily unique against Somalians. No, I think that what it is you have a demographic that comes in, has like some kind of disproportionate problem, and then the question is, okay, well, there's this problem here that's disproportionate. We should then thus treat it disproportionately. And then the response is, there's one of two responses. The first response is, you're right, they do it more, so we should probably take a closer look at them. We should probably divert more resources to handling that problem disproportionately. Or the other problem is, no, we can't, because that would be racist. And
would you say the same thing to the
is,
Trump administration, going after the Trump administration, the Mar-a-Lago cases, going after Trump for the multiple fraud cases that he has going on?
Yeah, if I was going to look into fraud,
would you say that's right? Would you say that's politically motivated?
The Minnesota Department of Education,
or would you say
that
that's because they
the Trump administration, or should they pay attention to their own fucking backyard?
Yeah, look, if I was a national, like organization that was going to look into fraud, I would absolutely look into Republicans only, because that's where most of the fraud is. It's in Republican hands. So why would we ever look at Democrats in that? See how crazy that is? No, we should look at the fraud where it's happening, no matter where it's happening, whether it be Democrats or Republicans. And this idea
what's happening in Somali communities in Minneapolis, but you called him racist for it.
So we only have to look at Somalians, and we can't look at anyone else.
That's where the fraud is happening. You just said, not 30 seconds ago,
I was using that as a facetious example to show how insane it would be if one term was only looked at because...
If you're looking within a localized area, yes, you would look where it's happening. Would you look in like a random shed?
$5 from the Supreme Grow.
Well, can I respond to that? I was going to respond to the point.
Lactoid was going to respond to my question.
Okay, respond.
Would you go after the administration?
I got super chats.
Would you say that's profiling?
So I would not call it profiling. My only problem with it is I think a lot of the allegations historically have been wrong, like the New York fraud case, etc. I think, though, like I do think that you would probably have a much better justification to look into Trump regarding the Epstein shit than you would to like look into Hillary Clinton. I mean, I think that should be obvious, right? And now you can say, well, are we treating different political parties differently? Well, right, but the evidence is like the evidence I think against Trump is significantly greater than Hillary Clinton, specifically with regards to the Epstein stuff. So I would say we should look more into. It would be justified to then be thus looking more into Trump on that particular issue. So I'm not. Yeah, my principle is one of like. We're talking about government funding. It's got to be efficacious. And if I'm running like an anti-mob initiative or an anti-Italian mafia initiative, and the mafia is...
It's okay to be discriminatory.
The mafia... And the reason it's going to be discriminatory is because the mafia themselves are discriminatory. You have to be Italian in order to be part of the mafia.
But daycare, we're not talking about mafia. We're talking about daycares, right? And
no, I'm well aware.
Talking about systematized community-based fraud.
Sure, if you get a
yes, the pirates, Ash, we know,
like a reasonable report, like a tip or something, like, hey, this specific daycare or this specific organization is doing the bad. That is evidence enough to go in and look at that, right? And it doesn't matter if they're mostly Somali, mostly white, mostly Republican, mostly Democrat. It doesn't matter. You're not going in there because they're mostly Somali. You're going in there because you received valid information that, oh, this is maybe the case. My accusation here, my thing that I am saying is that the right is saying the Somalis do most of the fraud. We got to go after the Somalis. And they are ignoring or minimizing.
That specific claim, like the Somalis do most of the fraud, I would agree with that. Then the second question is, should we have to go after all the Somalis?
Because they're the ones doing the fraud. That's what
But
they're
you
saying.
would invest. Yeah, but you would investigate the Somali
So
community.
you disagree
more,
with Ash then on that point, right?
No, I don't think it. No, Ash is not saying to go
point.
after every single Somalian. He didn't say that.
He did say
No,
that.
it
You said
doesn't-
deport them
no.
all.
Fucking
I'm not
kill
sure if he did or
yourself.
not, to be honest.
Hey.
Specifically. But I know
don't think he
there
said that
are
to a
there are
tiger.
right wingers who are saying that, and anyone who's pretending they're not is just we can laugh them out of the room.
Oh well,
Oh,
then
hold on. I said
that would get
before.
prosecuted.
I said before
I
there
know,
were
I
right-wingers
know.
who
That's
were
why I
saying
haven't
that.
I
And-
haven't brought this up. But I'm saying that anyone who's saying that right wing, there's no right wingers saying that, we can laugh them out of the room. I can give you like Stephen Miller and all sorts of other people in the administration saying shit just like that.
I don't know if Steve Miller said anything like
Your opening
that.
statement was
Well,
that
again,
there's
it goes back to whether the words are more important than the actual
Let's
fraud.
go to. Well, no. Let me get through my super chats. You guys distract me. $5 from the Shapingro to say,
course,
I
shut it
learned
off.
tonight that the difference between uwu citizen whistleblowers and racist citizen journalists comes down to their perceived politics. No, it comes down to the behaviors. $5 from Audacity to say, I'm tired of this broken Windows journalism. $5 more from Audacity to say, which would you rather have, daycare fraud son or citizen journo daughter? Which one's going to get me more money? Okay,
Yeah,
I think it's going to be daycare.
$5, I'm sorry, from Deej Nuts to say, couldn't the left easily prove Nick is a racist by showing the same shady behavior as present in non-minority owned daycares in the same area? Again, Nick isn't from Minnesota, right? Nick is specifically going to these
Across state
enclaves,
lines.
only exclusively going to Somalian-owned
state
daycares.
lines.
Can you show me?
Across
And
state
perhaps
lines.
maybe I'm
What
gonna
does that
get
mean?
maybe I'm gonna get owned right here. Can you show me a white daycare he went to anywhere, or a white healthcare provider?
But
White
they
daycare
didn't
anyway.
commit any
$5
fraud, Wick. They
$5
didn't commit any fraud.
Of course they commit fraud too. They just, in Minnesota specifically, they had a problem in this specific area, right? But again, if you think that only Somalians are doing fraud, you're silly. $5
Which
for
nobody
fancy
has made
feet.
the claim of.
Like, look at the PPP fraud. That dwarfs this kind of fraud
Not
by
per capita.
orders of magnitude. And the
Not per
PPP fraud
capita.
was done by like fucking everyone, left, right, and center, took up pieces of that pie. There's like some reports like $100 billion in fraud in that, right? But you don't see them going after that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's because
$5
Trump
from
fired a bunch
Let
of
me get through
IRS
this.
agents.
$5 from Fancy Teeth to say, to the point about Republicans getting it wrong over and over, I've never seen a Republican touch the stove and learn from it or change behavior. $5 from Riz, what the fuck?
I'll agree with
or
that.
5 pounds, I should say. Did Shirley reveal any actual facts that weren't already known through previous state investigations and news reporting?
No,
I don't think so. I don't think he even brought up the majority of the facts.
and he
Like,
lied
I
in
don't
the
think
video
that he
multiple
got.
times.
Yeah, no, like I think this kid sucks. Fuck him. Republicans are terrible at this shit. They're awful. They don't know how to govern.
Sure, $2 from Testicle Johnson to say debate board is a trog. $2 more from Testicle Johnson says, Ash, shave those sideburns, you hippie. $5 from Alishness to say, what other fraud cases have drawn the specific attention of Pam Bondi when the case is years old? They focused on it to highlight immigration. Well, yes, this is all, again, downstream of their desire to
motivation.
limit immigration, and this is the only reason that they're going after these things right now. $5 from A.K. Batozai to say, Wick, can we call out activist journalists who are overt progressives and only advocate for progressive changes? If you have a journalist that only goes after right-wingers and never goes after Democrats, then yes, I think it's fair to call that person out as biased.
That's
I
a-
think that's
yeah, that's a
absolutely
propagandist.
something you
That's-
should
yeah.
do. $2 from Deej Nuts to say the biggest PPE fraudsters were Somali. So first of all, it was a PPP. And I don't know what the PPE is, but the PPP, if you have evidence of that, provide it.
Yeah. Gotta.
I'm
It's for
looking
safety,
into that.
Wick. It's
Okay.
for safety.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Because that would be a huge dunk on you, by the way.
It
I
would
don't know
be
if
a
it's true
huge
or
dunk, but if you have evidence, please provide it. And here's the thing: if that turns out to be wrong, what will people stop believing Deej Nuts? No, they'll just keep believing him, and that's the problem because
And you know what's funny?
Just on this specific right?
Yeah.
And this specific thing, Deej Nuts was on my show a couple weeks ago, right? And to his credit, he apologized later, and he said, I was wrong. But he said that immigrants commit more fraud on average than natural-born citizens. And I knew that was wrong, and we had an argument about it, and we had a fight about it, and he said, no, I'm correct. I'm absolutely correct. Turns out, and he'll later admit this, and he'll admit this in stream, in the chat, right? Because I have the DMs where he admitted it, that, like, oops, I got that one wrong. So, again, like, that isn't to say we should never believe him, but, like, when people just keep getting things wrong, why do you keep believing them? I don't know.
Did the Minnesota Department of Education get this wrong?
Yes,
Yes.
obviously.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah.
So
You
it's
regard them
fair.
as, but
It's-
you
And the Joe
regard them
Biden,
as
and the Joe
correct.
Biden,
That's
thank
why you
God
bring
for
in
You
Biden.
thank
regard
God
their
for Joe Biden.
reticence. You
Got it
regard their
correct.
reticence to prosecute as correct on the basis of race. Do you not?
I think it
Because
it was
here's what I'm
smart
thinking
of them
for you.
to think about
You're-
that.
I would
It
just
was smart of them
lay
because
my
it's
foot down.
obvious they're being
Your
proven
defense-
correct right now. They're being proven
condemnation-
correct right now, Ash. People
your
like you call them
condemnation-
paperwork Americans.
your
You want
condemnation
them
of
deported.
MDA and your approval of Nick Shirley's targeting, not his journalism explicitly, but anybody's suspicion of the Somali community of fraud are joined at the hip because they are the ethnic group that was shielded by the virtue of the race. Like, what do you say? Okay, you said that we got to prosecute fraud equally. Were they
Yes.
being racist to white people?
What do you mean?
They refused to prosecute a non-white minority. So they're not distributing
refuse to
their
prosecute
focus.
white minorities?
Oh,
If that
wait, let
is
me just
true-
ask the question. They're not distributing their focus equally, correct?
Can you repeat your question, please? I'm trying to look up the Somali stuff.
They're not distributing
Sometime.
their focus on fraud equally if they are protecting a minority group on the basis of being a minority group. They're not distributing.
That is wrong. That is wrong to do. Yes.
Okay.
Do that.
And therefore, they were being racist. Yes?
If you want to call that racism, sure.
You called it racism.
No, I
On the
called it
basis
racism
of
when you
unequal
specifically and
focus.
exclusively
Yes?
target a group because of their race.
Ash is woke. He believes in reverse racism. We understand.
do.
Ash.
It's so
How woke
tortured.
of you. How
And it's
woke
why
of you.
it's why, by the way, the accusation of racism just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't matter.
Okay, if it doesn't work, just say
The
you're
game
racist.
is up.
No, Ash, just say if it doesn't work anymore, say I am racist.
I'm racist.
It's still
I
kinda- it's still-
love Latinas.
Okay.
It still kind of
Exclusively.
works. It does, and that's I think the
Yeah, and there's a reason
the-
for that.
But like
We think it's
it's
lame.
getting
It's stupid.
it's getting a little
Leave
bit
it
out of
alone.
hand.
It is lame. It is.
It's getting a little bit out of hand, I would say.
The
If you just get to
racism?
say I'm not doing my job because I don't want to be called racist, it's like I don't even believe you. I think you're just a lazy piece of shit.
I understand why you're afraid that's the case. I don't get that from from the understanding of the report, and I did read that line. I did, reading that, I didn't get that from what your guys' main assertion that because they were going to be perceived as racist, they didn't go after them. I don't see that. I see it more as, well, this could be
No, I
looked
just
as,
said I
as
think they're
racist.
lazy. I
And
don't
you need
to
think
talk
that
about
they
this.
actually believe
And
that, just to be
then-
clear.
Just $5.
There was
just
here
real
it is.
quick.
there was bullshit.
$5 from
Real
Deej
quick, go
Nuts
ahead.
to say feeding our future was the largest single instance of COVID relief fraud we know of, and it was Somalis convicted. I'm using voice to text. Yeah, but that might be true, and I don't know if it is, but that doesn't prove your claim that most of the PPP fraud was from Somalis. Like, these are
Well,
different
you-
things.
Could he have just like
you would
worded
have- you would
that?
have
As
to-
I
you
understand,
would
the
have-
feeding our future fraud was like 120 million, correct? Is that
You would have to look at like per capita though, right? That's the thing that
well? He
I
didn't
think we
say
have to-
per capita.
well,
said-
nobody is
Okay,
saying
we'll
like
get to the
the-
core of his fucking
Well,
objection, you
hold on.
dishonest, spineless weasel fuck. Get to the
Hold
core
on.
of the objection.
Wait. So Somalians make up like a 0.25% of America, if that, like total.
That's very low.
There's no way anybody thinks that Somalians made up most of the PPP loan fraud in all of America. That would be
I
a
can only go what he
crazy claim.
said.
But he didn't. But he
That's
didn't
why I
mean
was
that.
skeptical, because it sounded wrong.
There's no way he was making that claim.
If
Come on.
he wants to again, say per capita, they got more fraud, he can make that claim. But I can't make up what he says. I have to go on what he says. Hold on, is that inappropriate? If you say something, I'm going to go with what you say. If you want to clarify later that, oh, I meant this instead, fair enough. But that's why I'm very, this is the problem, I think, with a lot of these discussions. Is
He's not
a
being
lot of people
pedantic
make
enough.
these vague, overarching claims, and then when you dig down on them, they're like, well, actually, I meant this specific thing that's different than what I said, but, you know, it's the same thing. No, it's not. You're making a different claim. But anyway, 8 o'clock. Okay. You guys still here? You guys need to do other things? Or can we open up the pit and
I'm
have
doing fine.
callers? Or what do you want? What do you want to do?
I gotta kind of bounce.
Okay, we got,
unfortunately.
okay.
I've been
In
like
that case,
semi-distracted.
in that
today.
case, I'll give you guys closing
Yeah.
statements,
Mhm.
and we'll close it down. I want to give the mic first to Mr. Shenandoah, and then we'll have Ash with the last word. Shenandoah, give us your closing thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm Chairman Shenandoah. Thank you for having me on, Wig. I know it was a little bit more quiet on this debate, but it's good to be back and back on debate panels, and I'm looking forward to kind of warming back up. I think this one is very simple. Was there probably negligence by the Minnesota government with regards to fraud by members of the Somali community in Minnesota? Yes, I'm almost entirely willing to entertain that idea. Was there also probably some legitimate reasons why the Minnesotan government did not investigate some of that fraud? Sure, I could believe that. I even believe that the possible perception of racism is a at least partially legitimate reason that would make someone at least trepidatious for racially profiling investigations. But I think my greatest problem is that this has this fraud, which I think is real, has extended to a point of collective judgment and punishment that I don't think is justified against Somali Americans. I think Somali Americans are definitely in a period like many other immigrant groups have been in, where they are slowly integrating into American society, but they aren't fully there yet. And there are some problems on that road, but they could be entirely solved. And there's nothing intrinsic to Somalians as a community that should prevent that. And so, yeah, I don't like collective punishment. I'm a liberal. What do you want me to say?
I know it's a last minute, so I appreciate you being here. Now, just a fact check, and this is according to Grok, so it might be incorrect. But this is what Grok is saying, that the largest PPP fraud was done by in Arizona, actually. And it was done by, what's their names? Eric Carnezes and Anthony Carnezes, who pleaded guilty to submitting thousands of fraudulent PPP loan applications, resulting in over $178 million through a lender service provider. So that's the answer. To individual, if we go by individual. So I don't know. Give it to what's his face? In Pursuit. Go ahead.
Your mic.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, give us what
Okay,
you got.
cool. Thanks for having me on, Wick. I know it was a last minute thing for me. Shenandoah, thank you for also being here. Nice meeting you. I appreciate Lactoid and Ash. Lactoid especially because he does get into the nitty gritty, and Ash I knew would be the racist piece of shit that we all know.
Well, I
I
also
appreciate.
got into the nitty-gritty, even though I
It's
was being a
closing
racist piece
statements.
of
You're
shit.
gonna get a last word, Ash. I promise. Let In Pursuit.
As we so yes, to go back to the debate prop, yes, there was fraud. The Minnesota Democrats, looks like they did cover for it. Thank God for the Joe Biden. Long may he reign. Peace be upon him. And did Nick Shirley lie? Absolutely. And as we finish here on January 6th, on the 5th anniversary of when Ashley Hussein Babbitt died, I just hope the exact same shit's going to happen to the fucking Trump pieces of shit. Every maggot will be prosecuted. We will find them. We will uncover every rock. Yeah, thanks for having me. You can find my Twitter in Pursuit of Knowledge.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Deej Nuts for $5 says, I was conflating PvP with COVID relief in general. The money all comes from the same pot, Wick. I'll have to check on the COVID relief thing. Maybe. I don't know. $5 from Audacity to say Pursuit, looking buff, looking good. Lactoid, common W. Ash, stop forehead maxing. And Shan, I didn't know Jeb had a hotter brother. And thank you for the $5. Lactoid, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks, Audacity. That was a very wholesome message. And first of all, big shout out to our opposition here for coming in on such short notice. That is, props to you guys for doing that. I think, look, I mean, I know I came in with somewhat limited claims, but I think that they're all just true. And I think that really the descriptive claims I've made are true, and then really the argument is just what's the prescription here? The prescription here, I think, is twofold. The first one is to be infinitely skeptical of government, which I am. All right, you should always be skeptical of expansions of the government and them spending money. That's not good. And there's also opportunities for fraud that come along with that. And the other one is there is a culture war aspect to this, especially back in 2020. It's calmed down a little bit, but especially back in 2020. It does not surprise me that in 2020, as we all remember, that people in Minnesota, government officials in Minnesota in 2020 might be concerned about being perceived as racist and might be terrified of being perceived as racist, to the point where it actually is a major reason why they don't do their job and they don't do the proper amount of investigating, which is why the legislative auditor's report specifically states that at least one of the reasons was they were terrified of this, and this is one of the reasons. And why would they be terrified of this in Minnesota in 2020? Because you have political leaders there, just Democrat leaders, that's what they were, that were criticizing them for looking into those organizations. Again, Omar Fattah was criticizing them, saying that they were unfairly targeting immigrant groups. If you watch the actual videos, I've watched a few videos of him actually talking about it, and it's very much, they're coming after us. He uses a lot of us, them language when he's having the conversation. And then he accuses the state of bigotry, and you have Jamal Osman, who very directly said he called it tactical racism. He called the investigations and the withholding of funds tactical racism. And these are not just nobodies; these are people who actually hold positions of power within Minnesota. So it's a wonder why MDE might be a little bit afraid of that. That shit, it's calmed down a lot, but that shit needs to stop, right? We can't have government be taken hostage by the terror, the shame of being accused of being a bigot. So those are really the two lessons that I think we can gather from this. And I'm curious, I dislike Tim Walz for a whole bunch of other reasons that are much more, in my opinion, much more important than this. So I'm glad that he's leaving. But I am curious as to who's going to be up next and if any effect this might have in Minnesota politics.
It's a good question to ask, and we'll find out, I guess. Thank you for being here. What will happen is Amy Klobuchar will run, she'll win, and to replace her in the Senate, guess who she's appointing?
Tim
Walz. Tim Walz. Hey, that'd be the funniest.
No, Somali. Take care.
I don't know. That's just me.
I wanted to be the most Somalian Somali that they could be. Bro.
It'll be
Let's
Tim
go.
Walz. It'll be fun.
Let's go.
Omar.
But let's give it to Ash to close us out. Go ahead.
Yeah, as a reminder, I predicted all of the common ways to just minimize this obvious fucking absolute fraud that happened. You just deflect to Trump, deflect to somebody else, deflect responsibility ultimately. These people have no concept of governance, where you ought to aggressively prosecute fraud and stop people from stealing money that's supposed to go to the poor when people are already struggling. I think I don't think that's a hard right Republican stance. I could be wrong. I think we're done. I think we're done with accusations of racism. I think we're done with accusations of the other side might freak out. and thus I can't do my job. I think across the board, people who behave in this way are not American. They need to be deported, or they're probably going to get mulched. I think that this is the most important project for the next 10 years for anybody who is listening, anybody who gives a damn to begin with, is just, hey, across the board, stop accepting excuses for not doing your job. I think that will prevent a lot of violence, but I'm not optimistic. And less so after today. But thanks for having me on the panel.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for being here. $5. I don't want to forget. Fancy Teeth says, I don't know why ridoids are so harsh on Somalis. I liked Captain Phillips too, but they haven't internalized media this hard since Lord of the Rings. Thank you for the $5. And with that, we're going to let you guys go. I love you guys. And what do we got coming up? So we have tomorrow, I'm going on a Gibbs panel to argue the same topic. It'll be fun. And then on Friday, gang, at 6 o'clock, we are going to have Destiny and Dev versus the world on the recent change to the White House website. The White House today put out J6 propaganda calling Democrats the real insurrectionists. Yeah, it should be fun. Okay. Tune in then.
Wick, just so you're aware, Gibbs has a very strong position, like on the Somali fraud, and I don't mean strong in terms of like he's very amped about it. He is, but I mean strong as in I think he believes that like that it goes all the way up to the top, kind of thing.
Cool.
I mean, we know
Fair
he's
enough.
stupid. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. I do appreciate you all for coming on, especially the last minute comer honors. And I'm gonna let you guys go. Okay.
You guys did great, by
honors.
the way. I'm sorry for talking over so much, but that was cool.
Gee, thanks.
Okay. Now that they're gone, ladies and gentlemen, now that they've left the building, did you guys have fun? Did you guys enjoy that? Because the two on one side were last minute, I did jump in more than I normally do in order to give them a hand up. So they had less time to research and prepare, and they literally came in because I invited them like 2 hours before the show. So yeah, I jumped in a little bit for them, and I'll do it again, right? I try to make it interesting. I try to make it fun. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had fun. And I guess I will talk to you tomorrow. It's going to be a little lighter than normal. And I know some of you wanted, I know some of you wanted Destiny on, but I had to give veto. Like, if someone like that's going to come on my show and I don't tell my panelists about it, right, beforehand, I ask them if that's okay beforehand, right? Like, I ask them if that's okay. And if they say no, I've already booked them. I'm not going to bring on someone that they say no to. They have veto power in that specific instance. So yeah, I don't know. Here's what it is. Just how it is. But yeah, here we are. But yeah, the January 6th thing should be fun. Debate board, I'm not going to tell you who said no because I asked in private so that they wouldn't feel public pressured in order to answer one way or another. So this one it is. And again, I want to make sure that like people don't mischaracterize my position here, which has been I see chat doing all the time. Any fraud that is found, and there was fraud, and there probably still is fraud in Minnesota, prosecute it. Full extent of the law. Get it out. Get it out of our system. We don't need fraud. My issue is when you have specific fraud you target and then you ignore other fraud. Like the way I vote, the reason I vote Democrat is because I don't like fraud. And most of the people who commit fraud, right? Most of the people who are in power committing the worst fraud are people in the Trump administration. The crypto scammers, right? all that kind of bribery, corruption, all that umbrella of stuff, almost entirely the Republican Trump administration, right? And so why would I vote? If I care about fraud, why would I ever vote those fraudsters in power? Why? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But like I said, Minnesota probably does have fraud in it. Prosecute that shit. Get it out of here. Do not let the D or the R be a shield, but treat each equally and get each out equally. So, yeah. Okay. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. It's going to be a little later, like 8:30, maybe 7:30. I'd have to look in my schedule. I love you all. Goodbye.